We're good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the regular council meeting to order. Mayor Davey,
Here.
Councilmember Laredo,
Here.
Councilmember London,
Here.
Councilmember McCormick,
Here.
Vice Mayor Moss,
Here.
Councilmember Petros,
Here.
and Councilmember Segurola.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Mayor. If we may please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item, Mayor, is brief comments by council.
All right. Well, the first comment I'm going to make is that our village clerk is quitting. And we're all disappointed in that.
Boo.
Boo. I'd like to have a vote on that one. You know,
Do we have to permit her to do that?
no, unfortunately, we don't. Trust me, I tried. I called everybody I knew in Indian Creek and told them all sorts of things.
They said she was horrible. They still hired her.
But we are incredibly going to miss Jennifer Medina. She's been here for 12 years, 13 years?
12 years.
12 years. I was on council when you came on, and you've been a tremendous asset to this village ever since. I do want to thank you for all your hard work. I think we have somebody in the audience who wanted to, oh no, we don't have anybody in the audience who likes you. But we love you up here. I don't know if anybody else wanted to say anything to this point. But we are going to miss you, and best of luck in your new endeavors, because I think you're going to crush it up there.
Thank you very much. And I just, thank you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to first thank the former village clerk, Conchita Alvarez, for allowing me the opportunity and for believing in me to serve as your village clerk. I would also like to thank the former and sitting council members for having the confidence in me. And throughout my 12 years here, I have gained a tremendous amount of experience that I will take on with me to my new journey. And lastly, I am eternally grateful for the long-lasting relationships that I have made throughout the way. Thank you.
Thank you for everything. I then have one further comment, which I'm going to read. Just to quell any rumors, I will not be bringing a vote of this council with regard to the manager this evening. I received a number of phone calls from residents in that regard, but I did want to read something. The manager and I had a conversation this afternoon, and I told her some things in confidence, which I asked her not to share. We spoke about a growing concern of mine that, frankly, now that she has violated my trust and shared the details of our conversation and distorted many of the things I said, have been confirmed. Key Biscayne was founded on the principle that we, the residents, would govern ourselves. We essentially killed bureaucracy. But I am becoming increasingly concerned that our bureaucracy is growing at the expense of the original vision of Key Biscayne. Now, the consequences of a growing bureaucracy are increased staffing and costs, decreased efficiencies, and a weakening of that sense of community we have because we know we are all in this together, building this together. I think we're coming to a point when we will have to choose whether we are going to continue to be the Key Biscayne that we have always been, or whether we want to change to the style of government in places like the city of Miami, Doral, or Miami Lakes. I mean no offense to those municipalities. That form of government works for them. But Key Biscayne is different. Key Biscayne is unique. To me, the Key Biscayne way is special and effective, and I don't believe that the type of bureaucratic government fits us. We as the council represent the residents of Key Biscayne. That is our priority. And what I want to ask the council to do today is to come back to our next meeting with a list of those things that you think are going well in the village and those things that are not going well. Then, at our following meeting, I want the manager to give us her plan of action to address the items that are not deemed to be going well. The plan should identify the person responsible for their implementation and a timeline for completing all of those items. I already have some items for my list, but this isn't a strong mayor form of government, and this should come from all of us. I will say that my concerns as they stand now are the following. We've doubled the village manager's staff. We've doubled the finance department. We eliminated 3 employees in code enforcement, yet payroll burden stayed the same. Vendors are not getting paid for months and months, some more than 4 months late. Some vendors have stated to me that they don't want to work with us anymore because they aren't getting paid in a timely fashion. And those are vendors who are residents of our island. Our bond rating was put at risk when funds were transferred between accounts by staff without first speaking with our bond advisors. Bad contracts that have created potential for severe exposure to the village have gone out to vendors without being vetted by our village attorney. An RFP went out attempting to eliminate the role of one of our advisory boards against the clear letter of our village code. Essentially, what it was saying was to the residents, we're taking away your right to determine the direction of your community, and we're giving it to the people who run the government. We've had the mishandling of the safe routes to school. We had the misallocation of the pension funds, essentially trying to legislate instead of executing what the council had already legislated previously. And then there were the misrepresentations that came out of that to council as to what was supposed to be happening with those funds and what was going to happen at the meeting at which we made a final decision. Again, the privatization of our code enforcement has led to work sites not being properly maintained, and our village upkeep has not been up to our normal standards. We've had a refusal to provide complete information about the Community Foundation that led to unnecessary intra-council fighting up here, and it damaged the relationship between the village and the Community Foundation. Our RFPs have been significantly delayed. Even the RFP we're taking up today on best practices was requested by this council in December of 2018. So I'll have more items when we come back next time, but I would like all of you to come back with lists of what you think is going well and what's not going well so that we can talk about these things and we can have a plan of action going forward. That's all I want to say.
I'd like to suggest that at some point tonight, since you've given a list of things that none of us have been able to respond to, which we may or may not agree with your items, that we at least put something tonight to have a discussion of how we're going to do that, so that we can have an open discussion as opposed to just
That's fine. And again, I didn't want to bring this tonight, but after I understand there were calls made to people, after we'd have our conversation, Madam Manager, in which I asked you not to share my position so that, because I told you there was no vote tonight, I just want to make sure that you all understand where I'm coming from. I'm not just going off half-cocked on this. My thinking was we could all come back with our lists at a later date. But I'm happy to have that conversation later on, Council Member. We can put that on the next. If anybody's got brief council comments, Councilmember Laredo.
Yeah, I was hoping to start, as I'm usually made it my pattern, to start the meetings usually with a prayer, which we didn't have today, but also to reflect some good, hardworking people in our community to continue to spread the Key Biscayne Nice methodology. But you never fail to amaze me, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that you did say that is correct of the whole speech you gave is that this is not a strong mayor type of government. And in fact, if you want to be very accurate, this is a weak mayor type of government. All six of us have the same vote. The mayor, which I had the honor of representing the people as chairman of the Charter Committee, is almost nothing more than the chairman of this meeting and a few other protocol calls. And I find it very unprofessional, very unfair, very un-American for you to bring up an issue that blindsided us and then proceed to make a speech and highlight a whole series of specific things as Commissioner or Councilman Petros has done. It would astonish me, but not anymore after serving with you for a year. It is just a continual patting on your misunderstanding of your proper role under our charter, and also just basic common and decency and professionalism as it relates to management. Some of those things are unfair on the record. We'll come to it again, either later today. But I want you to know how wrong you are about your role and how unprofessional and displeasure it causes me and a lot of people in Key Biscayne of your conduct as to everybody in this council, and particularly the professional. Now,
Noted.
Can I go on to my other suggestion, or the same subject? Go ahead.
No,
Same subject.
okay.
I think that the council probably realizes, probably most of the village doesn't realize, that previously we had no management. We had no control. We had no finances. Everything just happened. We had no idea, accounting-wise, money-wise, anything. Any director could do as he pleased. There was no control over anything. Obviously, when someone else comes in and wants to exert a little authority, you're going to have a lot of people unhappy. So before we go ahead and kill everybody and cut somebody's throat, we really have to know where we were, where we are, and where we want to go. I think, and I appreciate everything Mike is saying. I don't necessarily agree with him. I'm sure some of the points he makes are valid, but I think that what you're saying is fine. We should all make lists, and that's constructive. Get together. We should discuss them with the manager to see what her answers are to each one of our things, and then get together and come back and do something. But as Louis said, I think the idea to go make the list is great. To list everything right now, I don't think is appropriate. No, but I understand where you're coming from. I understand how you would feel. And you know what? I would feel the same way. So I understand. By the same token, I think going forward, we've got to work together. We have to be in harmony. We have to, and I think that everybody will work out everything. But let's make our list. What we're not happy with, what we are happy with, primarily what we're not happy with, obviously. Discuss that with the manager. See if we get reasonable answers to our problems. See if there's a plan of action, what can happen. Nobody hates bureaucracy more than me, you know that. And I hate the bureaucratic things I see. And hopefully that's why last meeting we try to change a bureaucratic thing in regards to purchasing. A nonsensical thing we've been purchasing up until now to buy $500 or $10,000 or $12,000 stuff, RFPs, lawyers, all kinds of nonsense, rather than getting 3 quotes and moving forward. That's why one of the items on the agenda tonight is to try and remove the bureaucracy item and move forward, but yet have controls. We just can't say go do it. How are we going to control that? I'm going to propose basically that we have the manager sign off, the director sign off, and the chief financial officer sign off when these things are not with written RFP bids, but rather quotes from contractors or suppliers. So I think what you're saying is fine. Not everything is fine, but anyway, I think as far as let's find out what's wrong. Let's look at it. Let's discuss it. Let's fix it, and let's move forward together. And I think we can do a great job, and I think she can do a great job.
Councilmember Laredo, you had something else?
About another issue, getting back to the positive things, may I? I wanted to, I don't know where Mr.
Another comment.
Colpa is, if he would come up.
What?
Peter is not available when we need him.
Who?
Peter Colpa.
What's this about?
It was to show you a picture of this, but in any event, approximately a year ago when I joined this council, and you were going to see a picture, which obviously we're not going to watch because I don't know where he went. We all inherited a very awful entry site, which is the abandoned Oasis structure that was there 2.5 years before we initiated this council. And it was, at the time, one of the things that we did together very effectively with the administration to correct that unfortunate circumstances. And we decided not to look back, not to blame anybody, but to move forward approximately a year to the date, and a lot of pain and suffering, and applying our posture of hard but fair. Thank you, Peter.
There's a building next door.
Yeah, well, we needed you here. This is what it was when we were sworn in last November. It was like that for 2.5 years. Peter, would you please show what it is today?
Yep. Let's go to the next one.
I know the first one.
All right.
And as we try to work this out, that's what it looks like today, citizens of Key Biscayne. That's the inside and the outside. And I wanted to take a minute to recognize the owner and investor, Carlos Flores, and to come up, and I think to congratulate the village manager and administration in working with him. It opened February 4th. We ought to be proud of it. I want him to come up. This is a lesson on that together we can get things done, but we are now on a management style of hard enforcement and working together, hard is fair. You are an accomplishment for us. We appreciate your investment in our community, and we thank you for resolving this. And for that,
Thank you,
I want to give you this on behalf of all of us.
Thank you.
Two years from Michael.
What?
Years condemned unsafe structures, how many times?
Yeah.
Well, we give them 2 plaques.
If I may, first of all, I didn't fare so well last time I was here in this chamber. But I want to, first of all, thank you, the village manager, Jake, Chad, Luis, and everyone else that made this possible with a lot of patience. I know there were frictions, there were moments that it wasn't easy, but we did it. We have been residents in Key Biscayne for 20 years, and we love it. We love the island, we love the community, we love the space here, and our vision is to provide a great product, a great bakery that's 100% an identity of Key Biscayne, something that we can all be proud, a great product that can make people from any place in Miami to come and try, and also to show Miami that we can make great products, 100% made in Key Biscayne. So I thank you, and I hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Take a comment or any brief comments, or do you want to go to agendas?
I'm fine to move on. I would obviously want to add a discussion item.
Agenda of approval, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
One thing I'd like to do is I'd like to move up the special presentations ahead of public comments and have the youth lead change. We got a bunch of high school students here who need to get back and do homework. So I'd like to move 6B in front of 6A and move 6 in front of 5, if that's okay.
Yes, okay.
Where's Dr. McCoy?
And can we pull 7F on consent agenda for discussion?
Are we pulling now?
Pulling meaning to discuss later, right? 7F, and is it possible, Mayor, to move the 9A somewhere along the line, unless we, I don't want to take that so long, that's on the village clerk.
You pulled 7 up?
9A?
I think it's 9A.
Will that be the selection of
under-
the interim clerk and
Yeah.
discussion?
You want to move it up earlier?
Somewhere, so that we don't find out doing important things as we're exhausted at the end.
7D to pull also, please.
7F is the
7D?
is the rifles.
Okay, wait, hold on. Let's talk about Councilmember Laredo's point first. So you want to put the discussion item on the interim clerk? I mean, I agree with you. Where we
If you
just-
can figure
where-
it, a way to put it
How about
in.
a time certain?
Yeah,
Yes.
why don't we do that at, why don't we do that at 7?
Why don't we just do it after the consent agenda or before the ordinances?
Exactly, thank you.
All right, that works.
I like to pull.
Remove it.
D and E.
9A1.
You're pulling 7D and E?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to ask if we can move the discussion on freebie grandfathered pricing in to the presentations, because we have freebie here. We have Melissa here as well. I think it's important. I don't think it's going to take long.
But after public comments.
After public, yeah, we can do it after public comments. It's fine. This is 9A8.
9A8.
Yeah.
9A8. We'll go
After public comments.
And
Fine.
we've moved public special presentations up. Okay,
The most I've ever seen moved.
okay.
To add, number 1 would be the request of a date change for the next meeting.
Right.
Especially given what I just heard, if we can find. And then the second one would be to discuss the process by which we want to look at the functioning of our village at this point.
Okay.
We
So
do
that'd be 12.
additions still?
Wait, what?
11 and 12.
Yes.
Yep.
Add an item, zoning for assisted living.
Where is that?
13, 9A 13.
Oh, a new item, okay.
Assisted living.
And a new item. A new item, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that'd be 13, or whatever that becomes. Anybody else?
Yes, Mayor, I have 2 things. To clarify, the sponsors of item 7D is Councilmember London The sponsor for item 8A1 is Councilmember Laredo, and 8B1 is Councilmember Petros.
And you should make a note also that some of these are already passed by resolution. For example, the delegated authority was a resolution. It was a resolution passed by this council in the meeting before. Right, Madam Manager? Madam New Manager?
So, no, he's, okay, so,
Okay.
yeah, all right, everybody, are we all good? Anybody else want?
We passed a resolution.
On the
No, he's
delegate-
talking about the
voted.
resolution.
I'm sorry, we'll
for
bring it up
We'll
later.
talk about it at the
Later.
ordinance level, but he,
Wait, just one second. I
Please.
just want to go through
please, read him through.
all of these. So 6B
Right,
will be heard
before public comments.
before public comments, then
6A.
6A
Right.
after. Then we're pulling from the consent agenda. That would be 7D and 7F.
And E,
And, I'm sorry,
7D, E, F,
D, E, and F.
correct.
Then we are hearing 9A1 after item 7.
Correct.
9A8 after public comments. We're adding a discussion item as 9A11, rescheduling of March 10th council meeting. A new discussion item, 9A12, village functions. Another new discussion item, 9A13, assisted living. And am I
That's
missing
it.
anything else?
No, I think
Okay.
you hit them all. Anybody?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a presentation by the Youth Lead Change presentation by Pat Woodson.
And I want to also recognize our principal at Mast Academy, Dr. McCoy. Thank you, sir.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you on behalf of Youth Lead Change and our collaboration with Mast Academy. And thanks to the support of the council and the village, Youth Lead Change has had 4 assemblies, 5 workshops, and we now have our first cohort of winners of the Youth Lead Change Award, which recognizes their hard work, their commitment to making positive change in the community and in their school. And it's the same. So we have also here Rosa Verdeja, who is the chair of the Florida Outward Bound Advisory Committee. Part of what they have won, in addition to your honor of recognizing their service, is an Outward Bound leadership and team building course in March. So let's invite the students up here.
Please.
And we have certificates for you to present to them.
You want us to present? You want me to present? Happy to
Thanks.
do so.
And Dr. McCoy, while they're assembling, do you want to say?
Well, good evening, everyone, to Mayor Davey, Ms. McCormick, to all the council members, my good friend, the village manager as well. It's just an honor to be here to represent the Mako family. And before we close, I do want to give special thanks to my good friend, Pat Woodson. As we spoke about, yes, you don't want honors, but as we spoke about what we could do differently at Mass to recognize and to have our students to be leaders in the community and to ensure that they were leading that process as we move forward. Pat answered the question, so I just want to thank you for being good support for us at Mast Academy.
Thank you, and thank you for being. This is really the brains behind the operation here. So, okay. So the students are going to, we're going to start at this end. And the students are going to introduce themselves and say the names of their project and their team members.
All right. Good to see you. Thank you. All right. Congratulations.
Oh, he has a little information about this.
Oh, please. No, yeah.
harnessing the power of the sun for a more sustainable and peaceful world. Here with me today are Pedro Delvo, a senior, who is working on this effort when I joined in 9th grade, and his sister Annie Delvo, an 8th grade. I also want to recognize Alexa Ortega and Rodrigo Garcia, who unfortunately could not attend tonight. As part of the champions, and they work discussively to help input and moment toilets and to educate others to do so. Inspired by our solar project, I'm also working to fundraise and provide solar lights and chargers to areas without access to energy or reliable lighting. We would like to thank the Village of Key Biscayne for approving the funding for our solar panels at MAST, and also for the recent endorsement of the carbon tax bill. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Isabel Didvai McGinnis, and my project is Share the Boo. I love Halloween and had the idea to ask the community to donate their used Halloween costumes to give to the kids of Liberty City. Last year was my first year, and thanks to the support from my friends and neighbors, we were able to donate over 400 costumes. I was lucky to have Chief Prez's support, and this year I have the support of the Key Biscayne Foundation, which is helping me grow my project so I can share the boo with more kids. I hope I can count on your support this year. Thank you for this award, and it means so much to me.
Hi, I'm Liliana Brown. This is Enzo Fouquet, Isabella Katz, and Ellie Reyna. We are part of the Eclipse Club, which aims to help Mass Academy become a zero-waste school. Every other Wednesday, the members of our club sort through recycling, removing all contaminants, and making sure everything can be recycled. With cooperation and hard work, we have been successful in moving the recycling program at Mass forward. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Holly Thorpe. I'm a 7th grader at Mass Academy and part of the alternative transportation system at the Green Champions. My project is about getting to zero CO2 emissions by speaking about the importance of replacing our old CO2 polluting diesel buses with electric school buses. This is very important because not only is CO2 the main contributor to our everyday increasing climate change problem, but also because the levels inside the school bus were 5 times higher than the levels outside the bus, which is a health hazard. I found this out last year through my science project where I measured the CO2 levels outside and inside of the bus. So far, we have been able to get a promise from our superintendent that when the school bus needs replacement, we will go directly to electric. Have the buses trained and bus drivers trained and educated by the school board about not idling to reduce the CO2 impact, and advise the school board about the Volkswagen settlement funds available for the Florida and Miami-Dade County to get funding for electric school buses, which they have now applied for. Thank you.
Who's next? Maxwell?
Hi, I'm Maxwell Drucker. I'm an 8th grader at Mass Academy, and my project is Bikes, Bagels, and Buddies. So me and my partner, Nico, who unfortunately isn't here tonight, but we had this idea to increase awareness of biking to school, and that's why every Thursday we come to Mass Academy and give out bagels to people who bike to school, ultimately to increase bikers and reduce the carbon footprint.
Ellie?
There you go. You got 2.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Ellie Reyna, and I'm a sophomore at Mass Academy. This year, I've realized that there is a greater need for kindness and sensitivity towards one another now more than ever. My project is called the Compassion Campaign, and through it, I am planning on addressing and mitigating this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everyone that's here that supported us this 2 past years working with the Green Champions. We already have a project. Our first project done was the organic garden that's been working perfectly fine. The project that we applied for the award was the aquaponics, which is a simple way for you to grow your own fish together with your own vegetables as at a really organic way, and it can't get fresher than that. And we're finishing it right now, and yep. And both Matos and Felipe, they're brothers. He's a freshman and he's a sophomore, and they've also been working together with us in these two projects. So.
Well, I just wanted to take a minute, I don't know if this is on or not, but I want to thank you all, because you guys are, it sounds corny, but you're the future. And what you're doing right here, right now, you probably think it's a school project, but you guys are really, you're working to change, and we need that change more now than ever. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for being engaged, and thank you for everything you're doing here, because this is tremendous. I really appreciate it. So big hand.
Need a picture with you. A picture of these. Yeah. One captain, one ship.
Really well done. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations, everyone. Nice work.
We need the compassion project.
Next item. I'll let everyone clear the room first.
Yeah. Hey. Cormac. Allison.
Next item, Mayor, is a presentation by Village Beautification Board.
Jesse? All right. And then we'll have Ariel come out to join you in a minute. Oh, what's that? Nice.
You're all set here?
People at the ear at home says.
Can I ask a question? How many persons here live in a residential area, not in apartments? Single house. Okay, thank you. So, our village incorporated almost 30 years ago, 1991. Almost from the start, a group of village residents, we have been insisting on proper care and enhancement to our island paradise. Finally, 2020, you all, council and village administration, have admitted that our village looks tired, somewhat neglected, and is on the way, hopefully, to shine again. It all starts with professional supervision and accountability. Having open communication with departments, and allowing concerned residents serving in committees to give back their time and talent. All parties helping will implement this new standard of service. It is vital for the Village Beautification Board to be proactive with the advice of the horticulturalist and the village staff. All residents are welcome to attend our meetings and to please share. We want to know your concerns. Communication is essential. The Village Beautification Board expects to be made aware of any project involving beautification and/or enhancement of any village area by staff before it is a done deal. We expect to goal set together so we can complement each other. We are so happy that finally we have a horticulturalist on board. Ariel Simon, which hopefully can come and say a few words afterwards, is our village horticulturalist. She has been quite busy absorbing how government works, issues in the field, and will closely work with the village board, beautification board, in weighing in which problems to tackle first, hand in hand with the budget. The village will depend on her for supervising and accounting on landscaping services as we embark in seeking a new landscaping maintenance provider. These are some of our issues of concern. We residents expect better services in code enforcement, in waste disposal, bad parking, and general maintenance. But we are aware that if this level of service rises, our cost is going to go up. Our advice regarding landscaping is avoid any new project until we get the new landscaping maintenance provider settled in. Be aware of the higher level of maintenance is going to cost, as I say. The RFP that's coming out states that the service provider will be responsible for trees, grass, sprinklers, etc., while they are in charge. But we, the village, need to bring up to the level of service so that they can accept it. This needs to be clarified. We need to know how much this is going to take because we have to hand in a nice place, not a place full of weeds, sprinklers running, plants not almost dead, etc. The village landscaping and tree code. For the past 5 or 7 years, the village has been aware that we need to create our own landscaping code. It needs to be stronger than Dade County's. The village requires now a minimum number of trees planted on the new construction. Why we do not follow the code? Why do we grant exemptions? Why and who had the discretion to allow a private owner to build a lovely grand structure, an asphalt parking lot with no room for the minimum tree requirement? Why are we granting variances? How many trees were required and how many are they actually planting? Are you aware that the village code right now does not consider a palm tree or a fruit tree deserving any protection, no matter what the size it is?
Ceci.
Thank goodness Ariel has been tasked to update the village tree canopy. Several uncompleted attempts had failed before. We need to GPS all the trees in our island so that we can protect it. Now, regarding sidewalk safety, I had a tour this morning. It was wonderful. I understood. There are many plants, and I feel bad for the homeowners, but some of the plants are in the way for the sidewalk. Some of the homeowners were not aware or disregarded our current code. So a lot of the plant material is going to have to be destroyed. Also, Ariel made another good point.
Well, let's have Ariel come up. All right, we give you
Okay.
7.
But East Enid Drive, or
Ariel's right
West
there.
Enid Drive is Coconut Street. You need to be aware that that tree, that might be a liability, coconuts falling on children's, the money that it takes to maintain that and the infestation. There's about 80 coconut trees in that street. It's a beautiful street. What are we going to do about it? And be aware that the sidewalk project does not include tree replacement. That's going to come out of our budget. Please put money aside because the project is going to be completed before the next budget season. And I could go on and on.
No,
but
we're good. Thank you, Ceci. Ariel, have you got a few comments for us? You don't have to. I mean, it's up to you. We'll welcome you. We'll say hello. Welcome to the staff.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ariel Simon. For everybody that is listening or watching at home and does not know me, I am the new horticulturist for the village of Key Biscayne, and I'm very excited. I started on January 7th, and I look forward to helping make things, help beautify Key Biscayne in many of the ways that Ceci said. So,
Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
I have a question for Ceci, if I may.
Sure. Why not? Come on, Ceci.
I hear, and it requires a short answer. I hear that there are a lot of absences in your meetings, and that you're having trouble getting a quorum. And you know that we reorganized boards, and we passed it this year, and strict rules about attendance. Are you enforcing those rules?
we're about to have to
Okay.
enforce them. So
Because a lot of people want to serve, and people get on boards and don't do
I
anything.
think my suggestion it would be that maybe we need to request or use the same list that we had before.
So you're on top of it, right, Ceci?
Yes, Ignacio.
They're on top.
We're working on it.
And the second question is, you outlined, and you have been at this for many years, and this deterioration has been going on for a long time, for a very long time. Would you say that in the last year and a half, since this council has been here and the new management, things have gotten better, you've gotten response, you even got a board, and that we're moving in the right direction?
We're moving in the right direction, but the maintenance
My
is
question
not any
is,
better.
so before you didn't even get any reply, you didn't get any answers.
I didn't get you guys.
My point is, listen to my question. Since this council took over, and a few months before, a new manager that was hired for the council, things have improved in your concerns, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was my question.
Next item?
And welcome aboard.
Next item is public comments.
Public comments, right. I have Karen Llorente signed up. And we also have Raul Llorente. I guess you're going to be speaking on behalf of Raul as well. So I'll give you the full time for yourself and Raul.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Karen Llorente, 345 Cypress Drive. For Raul, I want to talk about the fire rescue. They've been to our house 3 times in the past 6 weeks or so, and they are, without a doubt, the most wonderful people. They're kind, compassionate, considerate, and above all, professional. They have been the most wonderful thing that happened to us in a long time. They have tremendous respect for their boss, the chief. And in return, the chief has tremendous respect for his people. And it's something that meant a lot to us. So that's all Raul has to say. Now it's me. I'm Karen Llorente, 345 Cypress Drive. For years, the meeting agenda has arrived at our house before each council meeting. I usually peruse it at some point before the meeting. Under Michael Davey, there is an item indicating search for an interim village clerk. I soon found out that our village clerk has taken a position as city manager in Indian Creek, one of the most prestigious positions in South Florida. The city where our first village manager, Sam Kissinger, was recruited to many years ago. I will say that the sadness that envelops me is enormous. Jennifer is a Key Biscayner. She has helped us to keep the village in the village. What is happening nowadays in our village that we are losing another precious village employee like Jennifer? Why are we losing Jennifer? Everyone, for the many years she's been part of our village, has huge fondness and respect for her. She is not only an exemplary clerk, but came to be clerk after working with our former manager as assistant to the manager. Her abilities in managing all facets of that job are top-notch. She has that wonderful ability to put together and present clearly, concise, understandable budgets. Remember those? She, as assistant to the manager, worked in a way that did not necessitate a larger staff. Amazing. We wish her the very best, as she is the best, and we have lost her. But with her talents and understanding of the role of what a manager is, they will be lucky to have her. We will mourn. With her, all employees for the years she has been here had a happy work environment. Things will never be the same, nor will the way we all wanted for our village to be from the very beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Alan Fine.
How's Raul? How's Raul? The hospital still? Hospital still?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alan Fine, 525 Allendale. I'm here before you, public comments on a familiar subject, and that would be the idea of a general obligation bond for the sustainability and future of our island. I read and knew that Councilmember McCormick had begun a discussion on this subject at the last meeting, and the reporting was that some of you were surprised that we would be moving fulsomely in this direction, and I wasn't here, forgive me, and so I don't know whether that you were surprised or not. I would hope that you would not be surprised, because now is the time. As I've told you on many occasions, we have a situation where I was looking at the ad that our Chamber of Commerce ran in the Super Bowl magazine, and it talked about, among other things, how Key Biscayne was actually on the leading edge of the discussions about sustainability around the county and the state. In fact, we've been getting our butt handed to us by the City of Miami and the City of Miami Beach, who are out there telling prospective new residents that if you're going to live in a coastal community, you'd be crazy to live on Key Biscayne and buy property on Key Biscayne, because Key Biscayne, unlike the City of Miami and the City of Miami Beach, has not been at the forefront of these issues. The truth is, we must address these now. There is a reason why people have become more hesitant to invest in Key Biscayne property, and one of those main reasons is the fact that we are not perceived to have a plan to take us through the rest of this century. As I've discussed with Councilmember London before, and many of others of you, it makes good business sense to take care of our main asset. We need, and we're at a point of time, probably will be at a point of time through the next election where interest rates will remain low because, frankly, it makes political sense to keep those interest rates low through that period. So the idea is to put this question on the ballot, and unless, of course, the council has the courage to go ahead and pass a bond resolution on your own. But if there is doubt about that, put it on the ballot for August. Let's get this voted on. Let's get a bond issue, general obligation bond put in place. With regard to the language that needs to be on a ballot, you don't need to lay out all the different ways you're going to spend the money and how much you're going to spend on each use. We may very well be able to get federal money and state money to pay for some of the things we've talked about, such as burying lines or beach renourishment. But we can't wait any longer. The time is now. I implore you to take this up at the next meeting. Get this on the ballot in August. Let's fight the fight. Let's get it done. And the time is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Melissa White.
I'm used to getting much more applause. Thank you.
Melissa White, 370 Heather Lane. This is a really sad time. I'm very happy for my friend, but really sad because we're losing a wonderful asset to the village. She has been a great, I think, village employee and a super friend. And I say that as a resident, and I say it as the executive director of the Community Foundation. I think the Community Foundation and the village have had such a wonderful relationship, mainly because of just our ability to talk. And so I'm gonna miss you. And some boys brought some flowers.
Melissa, I don't like you calling Jenny an asset. She's a warm, wonderful, intelligent, fantastic, great person. And we're very proud to have her, to know her, to wish her well, but she's not an asset. She's a treasure.
Thank you. You're right. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Manager.
Thank you.
This looks like my funeral.
Next up, Robert DeZuglu.
Hi, Robert DeZuglu, 785 Glen Ridge Road. I'm coming to you with a little bit of a frustration. I just want to introduce, we have the CEO of Shorelock that has come to visit and give a few words today. This is regarding beach renourishment. We introduced this subject 3 years ago. We've since met with the foundation. We met with the different departments at the village. We had a phone call with 11 people from the Department of Environmental Protection. The governor had granted a grant in order to test this here on the Key for $200,000. Surfside took it up in one meeting. It was unanimous, and the council voted on it, and in one meeting they said, let's go with this company, let's go with this grant. For us, we've been talking about it for 3 years. And so I'd like to see, we talk about being sustainably very advanced and the same thing with resiliency, but our reaction time is monumental on everything, whether it's solar. We've been talking about solar. We proposed waste to energy 8 years ago to the council. And this was proposed 3 years ago, was our first meeting. So I would request that the council and the manager, or somehow that we start to streamline these goals and really become that point that we want to be the community that everybody looks at that is innovative and so on, instead of lagging behind and being the last one, not the first one. So I agree with Mr. Fine, and that was just my comments. Please help us to make that transition. It's in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Laudy Ibarra. Laudy, there you go. Oh, do you want to wait? Okay, sure.
The next person to be right down here.
George Mendia.
Good evening, everybody. Manager, council, Jennifer. So I want to reiterate what Alan was talking about. We had
State your name.
111 Allen Drive, George Mendia. So we had this meeting a little while ago. We had, I don't know how many kids up here telling us what they're doing for their community, the Master Academy, how they're approaching and attacking the needs that they see coming that we don't seem to be attacking with as much passion. And Alan has been talking about a GOB for years and years and years. And the good thing about all those years is the interest rates have not gone up. We're still in the same situation from a borrowing point of view that we were 5 years ago or 7 years ago. Lourdes Abedin has done a great job as our bond counsel, and we have the ability to go out to bond. Our debt cap allows it. It's an opportunity that we have to take advantage of now. It's not going to exist forever. And we've over the last few years, especially now that the terms climate change and sea level rise are in our lexicon, we've come to realize that we have to do something. We didn't talk about that 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Now we have to. So that need that we started thinking about a long time ago is very concrete now. So I hope you guys really come up with a plan to take advantage of that. Everybody else is doing it. It's our turn. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Buttrick.
Jennifer Buttrick, 180 Cape Florida Drive. Thank you, council members, manager, village clerk. I will reiterate the fact that we will miss Jennifer. She's been a tremendous asset and treasure to this community for many years, and we hope that we will still see you frequently. So good luck, and you will be deeply missed. Lot to cover. I don't want to repeat what others have said. Now is the time to do a general obligation bond. It's critical for this community. I have a friend who's looking for property, and a real estate agent told her, you can't buy on Key Biscayne. They're ignoring climate change. Okay? Not a Key Biscayne realtor, but a realtor from off the Key. It's a problem. We need to get on it. Now's our opportunity to do so. We have the financial wherewithal to lead. We should be leading. But right now, when you drive around this community, we are not leading. We have zero code enforcement. It used to be a rule that bulk trash pickup was only 24 hours in advance of the day. Now it's a week, 10 days. Christmas trees sat out on streets for weeks. It was a mess. It's a problem. There are neighbors who cut down their street trees. Nothing's ever done. They're not replaced. There are, I'm not repeating Ceci's issues, but there are sidewalks, there are parks, the maintenance is a serious problem. We've wasted time on issues like the Key Biscayne Community Foundation. The beach and water quality is a terrible problem, and you all need to be asking, when did we find out that burying the seaweed is a problem? Because that was the problem. But a memo was sent out to the community, and burying the seaweed was not even mentioned. In fact, it was kind of left open, like we still don't know what the problem is. The truth is, we do. Burying the seaweed is a problem. Why was that decided as the option? Because it was less expensive? I spent a lot of time going through the budget for this year, and I noticed the numbers were through June of 2000. You know how you look at like current expenditures? There was a lot of money sitting in maintenance accounts. Why are we spending the funds that we have? What's going on? There is a problem in the village right now that needs to be addressed. We're losing good stuff, and it's unfortunate. So I hope that this council will ask some tough questions, particularly about what's happening on the beach. When did we know? And are we going to stop burying the seaweed? I'd also like to reiterate, as I always do, ongoing support for our fire and police departments. They do an outstanding job. And, as I've said on numerous occasions, I've had to call 911 too many times, and I'm deeply grateful for the fire rescue and our police departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember De La Cruz.
Luis De La Cruz, 640 Allendale. So I think you all know that I spend a lot of time on the infrastructure and sustainability issues here in the village. I try to help the village as much as I possibly can. I try to pester the manager as much as I possibly, as she lets me, and Jake is a magnificent addition to the village. We really need this general obligation bond, and we really need to get going with it as quickly as we can. In particular, we also need a chief resiliency officer that we need to get on board as soon as possible, because that officer is going to help us put together priorities with which hopefully we'll be able to spend the money that we're going to be able to borrow. For instance, there is everybody talks about the stormwater drainage, which we are working on. Well, there's also the water distribution issue that no one has brought up lately, but I know because many years before I became a council member, people were talking in my ear and telling me, hey, we really need to redo the water distribution. So maybe it's something that somebody needs to look at as quickly as we can so that we can, add them up and decide what we can do with the general obligation money. And I think that we really need to look at also the debt cap, because I haven't heard anybody discussing that for a while, but I know that when I was sitting up there, we had issues with the debt cap and the fact that we may not be able to borrow what we needed to borrow in order to do whatever we needed to do. So look at all those issues collectively, quickly, and hopefully let's get something going for the residents, for the citizens to vote on in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Veronica Domit.
Hello, my name is Veronica Domit, 615 Ocean Drive, here, Biscayne. My comment is in regard of the fertilizer use that you have in your agenda. So as a resident of Key Biscayne, I feel very lucky and very blessed to live next to the ocean. But being surrounded by such beauty comes with great responsibility as well. When I was a kid, I would walk in the beach with my mom and we would pick up shells. And now I walk with my kids every day on the beach, but we pick up trash and little plastics here or there. I do my part. I regularly use the fill-up stations, thanks to Manny and the incredible thing that he did. At home, we're continuously working to achieve a zero-waste lifestyle. I give coaching sessions. I sit in the board of several conservation organizations. I'm a conservation photographer involved in many projects to protect our world and its species. But I can only do so much as an individual, okay? So here, there are certain things that we have to do together as a community. And the final decision lies in all of you seated here in front of me. So I really, really beg you to approve this ordinance, and that will benefit our water, our beach, and for everyone, not the ocean, for all of us. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you guys good to go? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Laudia Ibarra, 482 Fernwood Road, from the Village of Kindness Committee.
Kim Vincent, 575 Crandon Boulevard, also from the committee.
Jimena Gutierrez, 550 Ocean Drive.
Remember the joy of seeing a handwritten letter or a postcard land on your doormat or mailbox? In this digital age, it happens less and less, but we decided to start it again. This week, we be on the lookout for Spread the Love campaign postcards created by kids to celebrate love and kindness. The postcards feature inspiring message and beautiful artwork by local artist Jimena Gutierrez Grateri. If you receive a postcard and it touched your heart, please be so kind to write a message of love, hope, gratitude, or kindness for someone you miss, you care for, a loved one, a local home, an orphanage, and pass it along so the love keeps spreading. We hope this simple gesture of love will spark a wave of kindness throughout our community. When you mail the postcard, please share a picture and hashtag spread love, hashtag kids.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Thank you very
and we
much.
hope you also enjoy the message we left.
Thank you, what
And
you
the
guys are doing.
entrance.
It's great. Blaine Ross?
Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Hi, my name is Blaine Ross. I live at 1657 North Miami Avenue. I'm CEO of Shorelock, an environmentally sustainable approach to reducing coastal erosion. It's a pleasure to be with you guys today, especially considering the town has been so strong about the environmental support that they're asking for today. Shorelock has been in conversation with the town staff for over 2 years now, discussing the potential for us to assist you in protecting your real estate investments, your tourism, and your infrastructure. During the past 2 years of conversation, approximately 10 more feet of your beach has disappeared. 10 feet while we're talking. I do not have the time now to speak to the science behind Shorelock, and I would welcome the opportunity to present to the council at a later date. But I will briefly tell you that it is a plant-based powder that is mixed with the sand between the high tide and low tide marks in measurably small amounts. It does not require lengthy beach closures. It's been used in the Caribbean for over 10 years. It's been tested, it's safe for humans, marine life, and it disappears without a trace within 24 hours of an application and degrades quickly over 4 or 5 months. The Florida DEP and Fish and Wildlife have had precursory reviews of the product. They have spoken with your town manager, your town engineer, and reviewed your location, stating that they see no issue with the permitting of a project at this location at this time. A recent Miami Beach fill cost $11.5 million for less than 1 mile. Inside of that same year, over 70% of that sand was lost for roughly $8 million. Had Miami Beach used Shorelock after their renourishment, we estimate the cost to protect that mile at approximately $485,000 in the first year, and in subsequent years, $400,000 in maintenance. This is but a fraction of the $16 million they needed in 2019 to repair the losses 2 years earlier that same $400,000 would have protected. Over time, the proactive maintenance of Key Biscayne will save the town money by reducing your annual sand loss, assisting in protecting your coral reefs from bleaching events resulting from renourishment siltation, increasing the ability for sea turtles to return to their nesting grounds, and help reduce coastal washouts during storms that leave your residents' homes at risk, and eliminate the nearly 2,000 truckloads of sand that you brought through your village in 2012, emitting CO2, stressing your roads, and causing congestion. Continuing to place sand on the beach unprotected with traditional methods is like buying a Ferrari and parking it in a hurricane and hoping it's there when you get back. It's time to start doing things differently. It's time to start being fiscally responsible and exploring new technologies. The ways that we have been doing things are not working, and they're not working for the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Can we go down? We'll ask a question before we go back.
Yeah.
Sir, I think Robert showed me your thing about 3 years ago. And at the time, I think you were doing something in the Caymans, if I remember correctly. And obviously, it looks like magic, and it's wonderful magic if it works. And I think I said to you, Robert, if it's so damn good, why don't they put it here and we'll give them a deal and we'll pay them if it works. Whatever happened to that? And if it doesn't work, we don't pay them.
I actually approached, and we've had several conversations. I made the suggestion that we've gone out to the state for federal and state funding to do a grant here. And I said, would you, Key Biscayne, be interested in having this conversation? We did not get a reply back that was in support of continuing this work. So I'm happy to continue the conversation. I would love to.
Not continue the conversation. My question is, you believe in it, you say it works. You know, you buy something, you got a guarantee. A car is guaranteed for so long. And you're saying it works here, fine. Why don't we make a deal with you, a contract with you, We get it from you. If it works, we pay you. If it doesn't work, we don't. Is that fair enough?
Surfside had one meeting to make this decision. They voted it unanimously.
Let him answer the question.
Well, actually, I really appreciate the opportunity to explain the entire company, the way we work and what we do, not during public comments.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've had to do this now because I haven't been given the responses back over the course of 2 years.
Okay, let's put it.
I wish you would not make that comment, to be honest with you. I have an open mind on this, because you're making a judgment.
He's not making a judgment. It's by the work that we've done for 3 years.
May I finish, if you don't mind? That's it. I don't know who it is not giving you an answer, but if you got the answer that you don't like, that's another issue. I think you should not kind of offend my intelligence and as a council member or even our administration, that if you don't get the response you want, that we are being insensitive. But having said that, I think what my fellow councilman to my left here, London, is suggesting is a very wise suggestion. And if you're prepared to do that, I'm prepared to look at it.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we talk to the manager, set up a time for, come back and give us a presentation. Give us a full presentation on the product, and we can start having conversation up here. This is not the time for that. No,
it's not. He had to come to
That's what I was
public
saying.
comments.
Sorry. It came in public comments. He
If
was
you
not a
could make sure
presentation.
to include what, if there's a $200,000 grant that someone else pays for, exactly what that would look like for us, because it sounds like our appetite is to do it for free and see how it goes.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, that concludes. Anybody else for public comments? Okay. You want?
I didn't submit it.
Robert.
Okay, yeah,
Robert.
come on up.
Hello. First of all, thank you very much, Honorable Mayor and the council members. My name is Aaron Stauber. I live in Bell Harbor. I'm an intern with Miami Waterkeepers, and I'm here to speak in favor of the ordinance, the fertilizer ordinance that will be the second reading later this evening. So I'm born and raised in Miami Beach. I remember when Crandon Park used to have the zoo and the amusement park over here. I also remember the beaches that were here and they were safe to swim in. After 30 years in business, I came back to Miami Beach now, and I decided to get a master's at Rasmus in marine conservation. And I did that because I'm now a grandfather of 2 children, and my hope is that they will be able to experience the same beauty that I had the opportunity to experience when I was young. So the ordinance that you'll be reading is really just common sense. We know that added levels of nitrogen and phosphorus are the main culprits behind algae blooms and seagrass die-offs. We know that in many fertilizers, the key components are nitrogen and phosphorus, so it makes sense to specify ones that will work best and do the least amount of harm to our environment. We also know that if you put fertilizer on your lawn during our summer rainy season, most of it is just going to wash right off into the sea and do nothing for your lawn. Well, we may not be able to have a direct impact on climate change, but at least we can try to change the things that we do have control over, like what we put into the water that we drink and we swim in. And so I applaud the village for being at the forefront of environmental issues, including your plastic bans. And I encourage you to continue your leadership and approve this ordinance with regard to fertilizer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that's it for public comments. Let's go on
Next
to the
item, Mayor, is freebie grandfathered pricing. Vice Mayor Moss.
So I wanted to bring this.
Do the minutes? We'll do it later.
No, that's later.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I wanted to bring this up quickly. Last meeting that we had, we decided that we wanted to go out to competitive bidding with the with the transportation. I received an email from our manager, which was an email from Freebie, and they brought up a very good point that I think we all should discuss. I'm not sure if everybody else got the email or not. But it basically, I want to make sure that we're not going out to bid this out only to shoot ourselves in the foot. And I did have a conversation with many different people, the manager, and to find out what are the prices that other people are getting. And we are, in fact, have the best price right now. And it doesn't include that Freebie currently has very good relationships with our businesses, local businesses, and those relationships are actually giving a $72,000 subsidy. So we're actually getting even less once they do that. So if we brought somebody new in, go out to bid, Freebie thinks they're going to be the most competitive anyways, but it's going to be a higher price than what we have, and that's understandable because other people piggyback off these contracts and they're going to come up with a higher bid. And they feel very confident that they're going to win the bid, even at the higher rate that they're going to give us. And even if they don't and we bring somebody else new in, we're not sure if they're going to be able to subsidize with advertisement. They might be able to. There might be a learning curve. They might not have the same relationships. So I have Melissa here. She can give a little bit of background about what negotiations have happened in the past. Freebie's here as well, but I think that we should relook at this because if we are getting the best price right now, I think that we should just keep it going the way that sign a contract the way that we had it and not go out to bid and end up with a $50,000 increase with the same company.
I think you guys are technically already out to bid. At least that's what I heard today.
We are. We would have to rescind the bid, and I guess Chad can talk a little bit more towards that.
So, Manager, Council, I'm just here to give historical information on it. Let's see. The local transportation program started in 2015. It was a vision of Councilmember Kelly, residents Ed and Amy Easton. The first vendor was KeyRide. And from 2015 to 2016, budgeted for $252,000 a year, we ran KeyRide. It was a learning curve for sure. Ana de Verona, Councilmember De La Cruz, and I met with Downtowner, which was a service in Aspen and Tampa. We requested proposals from companies in Miami Beach and Jacksonville. The contract with KeyRide was not renewed for the following year. Freebie service started January 2017. Since then, on-demand service has been less than budgeted amount because of ad revenue sharing. Significantly less. These are the total ridership, and we received these numbers from the vendor. This is Village of Key Biscayne Q1, October ridership, and it's broken down by completed rides, total passengers, average driving rating. And there's been definitely discussion between, do you measure on completed rides? Do you measure on total passengers? So this is November, December. KB Loop, now the difference between the two is on demand. You make a phone call, they pick you up. Key Biscayne Loop has been historically running as a circulator. It has not been as successful. The thought process was that it would take over for a trolley-like function, and there's been discussion on whether or not that's been successful or not. Once CITT changed the regulations, and that was November 2018, we could start using circulator for on-demand and be reimbursed. So on-demand expenses, if you look at fiscal year 2019, the Village of Key Biscayne budget amount for on-demand is $252,000. Our prior contract, which expired in February of 2019, broke down days per week, weeks per year, hours per day across 3 vehicles, $18 an hour. That was for the original contract. That doesn't include the loop price. Actual VKB expenses for 2018-2019 were $131,750, which is $10 an hour.
And that was because of ad revenue?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So, circulator expenses. I don't really know these because the way it works is we pay, Freebie invoices us. We had historically paid Freebie, and then we would submit expenses to the village. And we only submit expenses that aren't covered by ad revenue for on-demand. But for circulator, we expense everything, so it's $170,000. And then what CITT covers, I assume would be everything, but I don't know. And that's something that Benjamin could answer. So this is the way it's budgeted annually, as you guys know. You have 252,000, which for last fiscal year, only 131,000 was used. 170,000 for CITT, which I think manager is all covered, right? Yeah. So anything left over in the fund is rolled over into your CIP fund.
Melissa, did we reimburse you for those two amounts, the 131,000 and the 170,000
Yes,
for
you
next
did.
year?
Yes.
And I think it's important to know that the funds are coming from the CITT to pay for this, and we're dramatically lower. So
Is he the representative here for questions?
Yeah.
But are you in a cone of silence?
The village doesn't have a cone of silence.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Spiegel. I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners at Freebie. Obviously, our concern through this RFP process is not the RFP, is not the competitiveness. We're very confident in the quality of service that we provide at the lowest cost to the taxpayer. It's the fact that if we do have to go out to bid, we're obligated to give a rate similar to our other municipalities. Otherwise, their rates would have to drop, and I can't do that. You guys have been grandfathered in because you guys were the first municipality to contract us. You guys were the pioneers of this on-demand service, so we've kept the rate as is. And then additionally past that, we've been subsidizing major portions of the cost of the service for the last 2.5, 3 years. So we just want to make sure that through this process that, like they said, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. We go out to bid, even just raising by $3 an hour, which is the second lowest municipality, which is Miami Beach, who actually runs service almost double the amount of hours per day. That would cost the village an extra $50,000 annually, really for no reason whatsoever. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that, and here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Mr. Mayor?
I want to, yeah.
Councilmember Segurola?
I saw the email that was sent. Did you write it or someone else?
I did write that.
Okay, here's the problem. I took that email as a threat. The way I saw it is, don't go out to bid or we're going to raise the price on you. And the only person that we have to take the word of that we're getting the best price is Freebies. That's not exactly fair, and we're not doing our due diligence as a council if we don't go out and find out what the actual market price is. And something you just said a couple minutes ago sort of worried me also. You just said that you have to give a higher price because if not, all the other industry players will have to lower their price. That sounds like some sort of price fixing in the industry.
No, not at all.
It's not at all.
Not at all.
That's how I, okay. My problem is I don't see it as me doing my job as a member of this council if we don't put this out to bid and find out what people are actually willing to charge us for this and just take the word of one person.
Sure.
Just like you replaced Key Ride before with a better deal, somebody may come along and give us a better deal than what we're getting now. And as a council member, I can't tell residents, gee, we're giving you the best price when we don't actually know that. That's the problem that I'm having with taking your word for it and not putting this out to bid.
No, I definitely appreciate that. No threats whatsoever. It was very just more of an education. But all of our pricing with municipalities is public record, so it's not my word. I think manager and staff actually went out, looked at all the different contracts that we have, looked at other vendors' contracts as well. But again, I'm just here to make sure that everything was laid out and it's understood.
My concern is we don't know what any other vendor would charge us besides Freebie for Key Biscayne.
Okay, Councilmember Laredo.
Hi, and thank you for coming. Gratitude is a virtue. And I thank you for, giving us supposedly a better price, but, we were there at creation, so, and I appreciate that. But I share a little bit of, that's why it's so dangerous to write emails. It wasn't meant, I'm sure, by you, but I also got a sense of it wasn't quite what you meant. And so it's good that you came up and spoke. You as a businessman, we know that, and we're trying to run this as a business. Ed London's philosophy, and earlier today, it's, we need to get back to better practices. We inherited a lot of bad practices, which is okay. We're in the process of fixing. And when we get hard compliance, then we can be flexible. I don't, he can speak for himself, but I see his idea is a good one. But then we can make exceptions because some conditions are such that, as in this case, it's a good deal for our taxpayers. But you have to understand the discipline of it. It was not intended to do anything but to instill discipline. It's a matter of fact, as Councilman Moss has said, this in fact is happening because the manager has called around informally and got a sense of what the market will bear. This is not a big market. So my only, and I agree, I think this is possibly a time that we can make that exception and save ourselves a lot of trouble. But I mean, I want to emphasize my respect, the support of Councilman London's philosophy, because if we don't start being hard, then we cannot be flexible. Now, as to the specifics, which I started to talk about last time, was the 3-year thing, and I just read into it, correct me if I'm wrong, that we were stuck with the equipment for 3 years, where some of it, needs to be upgraded and et cetera, et cetera. So that gave me a little bit of concern that we just grandfather you in for 3 years. And by the way, you people are wonderful. And we have serious parking problems here, as we know, and this is a very important part of our agenda, to get people off their cars and even their golf carts. So I don't know if it's the time to talk about the 3 years, but I am willing to be flexible as per Councilmember Moss, and I think this is the best.
Councilmember London?
I'm responsible. I'm the bad one.
No,
but basically, I'm also the good one. I basically think we should get prices on everything. I don't think we necessarily have to, all due respect to our attorney here, have long, convoluted requests for proposals, bids, qualifications, rather than basically getting quotes and looking around and seeing the best price. Yes, I think we should get prices. I understand from Andrea that we have got prices, that you looked around, you checked the prices, and in effect, we do have the best deal. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if that's the thing, then to me, that's fine. I don't need a formal thing. If that's the thing, and she's checked with all the other people that she's talked to, and we get the best deal, it's fine with me.
Councilmember Petros?
I did have one question about the CITT funding, and thank you for coming. I'll get to the freebie service in a minute. Manager, I know that we got some information that there were some problems potentially getting reimbursed and that we had to maintain a loop, and I'd just like to understand that, and I'd like the public to understand the reimbursement, because it sounds like now we get the full 170 regardless of a loop or on demand, and I want to know how that works better.
Yeah, so Jason, if you'd give us a second. So Benjamin Nussbaum is our finance director, and he can speak to the technical side and then a very simple explanation as to how the drawdown of the funds will work.
Hi, Councilmember. So from the CITT, we get roughly, you saw Melissa presented the budget, around $500,000. Of that, a minimum of 20% has to be spent on transit services. Now, before, we had an audit for a period of 3 years, ending in 2017, where we didn't meet that threshold because prior to November 2018, money spent for the on-demand was not eligible as transit services. So we are spending the entire amount now on transit services, but now we have to spend back for this period of unallowed charges. So we have a 5-year period to now spend that. As budgeted currently, we're going to meet that requirement within the 5 years.
Okay, so we get $500,000 of funding every year.
Correct.
Of that, 170 goes towards these services that we're providing the community. What do we do with the other $330,000?
So if you look in this year's budget, we actually have, in our CAP budget, we actually have transportation projects. Those are eligible costs.
Okay. All right, thank you. I would just like to say I had the same conflict a little bit, where I very much think that we should be going out to bid, and I agree that process is really important, and I understand and appreciated what Ed said. I know last meeting, this was brought before us as a recommendation, I believe, by our manager to actually approve freebie for a contract, and it was us that asked the question. So I want to make that clear, that we asked to go back and go out to bid, and we put pressure on getting an RFP out there. So I'd like to know if we could withdraw it, if we could take a vote on what we'd like to do. It sounds like you had done due diligence on price. Melissa's, yes, do you have something to add?
If you guys don't want it, if you want to go up to
No,
RFP,
no,
if
no,
you
no.
don't,
Well,
then
just let them know.
I was just here for
Melissa,
history.
Melissa, it's okay. Thank you for your input. I'm prepared to move it.
Okay, and then the other thing I would also like us to make a decision on, because I've heard, we had discussion about this, is actually moving this over to the village, under the village manager, and making that a final move
Was that
as
the
well.
discussion we're going to have this evening, or is that a
That
another
was what was
discussion?
recommended last time, and I
Right.
personally would be ready to make
I'm fine
make
with it.
that
I
motion
just, that's.
to do both of those things.
Well, we have a couple motions. What was your motion on the table?
I wanted, I wanted
RFP and-
to remove the.
Rescind the RFP.
So we can bring the contract back at next meeting?
And we get, Ed is very articulate in the fact that I think his effort and mine, and most of us, on bid is not a strict legal lawyers getting together and making simple things complicated. He wants to be able to compare prices. I think I'm satisfied that's the case. I think we've had a mutual, we helped you at the beginning, you helped us, and I think this is a win-win situation. I would only ask the delegate to the manager to, since it's a 3-year term, about the quality of the equipment. When I read the original thing, it seemed like we were locked into
Well, I think
that.
we have to come back, we have to look at the contract next meeting, so.
But
we'll
that
bring
would be
the
my
contract back
motion
for-
to approve it as recommended last
I
time.
think,
Wait, hold on.
because this item was listed as a discussion item, if you want to take action,
Right.
that's fine. but
Just bring it back.
You need to
We
just
have to
make a
notice it.
determination, well, on the agreement, but just to what Councilman Loretta was saying, just make a determination that it's time sensitive, and a roll call vote would occur. And I think you guys have acknowledged it's time sensitive because this is an ongoing.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear, and this was the purpose of the contract that the manager tried to bring forward in January. Whether you go out to bid or not, or contract or not, I just want to make it clear that the foundation is not running this program any
Correct.
longer.
We got it.
And, okay,
We got it.
Thank you.
Melissa, thank you.
Ed, you want to say something?
I don't know if, Louis, we have to talk about the equipment. They have to provide the service and equipment that's acceptable
Yeah.
to the job. So as long as they do that,
Okay.
how can we tell them what to replace when not? Right.
No, I'm just saying.
That's all, they
yeah.
got to provide the
And-
service.
And the manager would
They'll
be.
supply the proper equipment.
This is a
If it's not, let
conversation
them
to
know.
have when we have the contract in front of us and we're voting on the contract.
So my motion is to go through the recommendations of the manager after review back, rescind the thing and
Okay, so.
the spirit of what we passed last week was very constructive, and it's part of our new discipline. But we love what you do and we want you to do it better. So I move that.
Okay. All right, all those, let's have the roll call vote.
A roll call, and I think the council also finds that it's a time-sensitive matter.
It is.
Councilmember London,
Aye.
Councilmember McCormick, Councilmember Moss, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Moss,
Aye.
Councilmember Petros,
Aye.
Councilmember Segurola,
Aye.
Mayor Davy,
Yes.
and Councilmember Laredo.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item is the consent agenda.
Moved.
And I believe Councilman Laredo wanted to pull.
One other thing, we have 3 things pulled, but one of those items, Councilmember Laredo, is the, is item F, the purchase of the AR-15 SBR rifles. Chief Press is out sick tonight, and he would ask that we defer that to the
absolutely.
next meeting. So if that's okay with council, we'll defer that time sensitive to the next meeting so that he can attend.
I believe Councilman Laredo wanted to also pull item 7A.
Yeah, what I wanted to-
E&E.
No, 7A.
Oh, 7A as well?
No, let's get, 7A is the.
Minutes.
The what?
The minutes.
No,
Did you want to
7.
discuss the minutes?
Oh, you want to go back to the minutes? Yeah, I just have one quick addition, but when are we, okay. Let's stay on this for a minute because Madam Manager. The reason I wanted to discuss that is I thought it was tied to D, which I support, which is the.
Minutes? You're talking about the minutes?
No, now, the manager has disrupted my thought here.
What are we talking about now?
I pulled F so that I can discuss it in the content of D because that I believe is your item originally back a year ago to get a consultant to come in and that I would think.
2013.
Right, but since I've been here this year
It was
and that,
December of 18 that we wanted it done.
Right, and that, you know, we should look at buying any stuff until we have a view. Just like I think I did not vote with you, perhaps in retrospect unwisely, on buying new cars when I didn't have a strategic thing. So that's why I pulled it, not that I was against it, but it needs to be done in the conference.
2015.
So we'll talk about it when it comes before us.
2015 was approved.
Well, was it?
The consultants.
Oh, okay. And then it was reapproved, well, we reapproved it in 20.
Okay, so where are we? Reset.
We're now going to the consent agenda is before us. You're not pulling the minutes?
Oh, I just wanted to add one at page 4 of 13.
Are you pulling the minutes?
Yes, he has a comment, yes.
You have to pull it to have change anything.
Pulling it, right?
I'm
So
pulling.
pull the minutes.
Can't get used to the
Fine.
pulling.
So the minutes are now pulled. That's now 7A. That'll come off first. So for the consent agenda,
I move it.
Second.
no, I already moved it. But whatever.
Is there a change? No,
In the minutes?
yes,
Yes.
okay. I got it.
So the only things we're voting on are B and C right now, correct?
Correct. Correct.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So the next item would be the January 28th, 2020 minutes.
On page 4 of 13 at the bottom, at the very bottom, when I addressed the issue of the resolution on the wellness center, Jennifer, if we get that I brought her up for getting local business, Baptist and Mount Sinai to offer the services. And in the next paragraph, the chief's report also has the most important part omitted in the minutes, which he said he had done that. It should be clear so that our taxpayers know that we're looking, and our businessmen, that we're looking to them first.
Sorry, which?
Okay,
page
so it's
is-
page 4 at the bottom. It says, Councilman O'Leary addressed the council regarding the above, you know, the thing. And I say, regarding the getting local business Baptist and Mount Sinai to bid or be offered to bid on that. And the chief immediately afterwards answered on the top paragraph, and he said he had done that, and it's not reflective there. And that's important. It's an important dialogue to have.
I will add it.
We have
Absolutely.
reached out to our
Fine.
taxpayers. It's just a clarification. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any
All right.
changes?
So 7D?
Do we have to vote on any?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Are we hearing item 7D?
Yes.
A resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, approving the Moss Group, Inc. to perform a workforce analysis of the village's public safety departments, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion?
Started off, Ed, you brought it up.
I brought it up. I read all the proposals, I read all the background, I read all the references, I read all the methodology and everything else. And after reading everything, I do not feel that the Moss Group is qualified to be our thing. They don't have the experience, a number of other reasons. I think the high bidder who bid on using a lot of stuff that we don't need, I think it's the ICCMB, or I can't remember, how do you?
There's CPSM and there's JRD.
A lot of initials, okay.
And GHR.
Anyway, make it long-
GHR only wanted to do fire only?
Anyway, so I went over with the manager today, all the things that I didn't like or did like. I was away, unfortunately, when, the previous week. So, and then I talked to the gentleman there and told him why I didn't think his bid was responsive, although I think he had the most experience, for sure. When you look at his experience, you look at what his qualifications, references, et cetera. So I really think he was the most qualified. The one who just gave us fire department alone, again, I'm looking for somebody to do fire and police also. And then, so I thought that was, and I can't remember what the third one was, but I had comments on that also, which I gave to you at the time.
That they were local?
That they were local, and I don't think we should lose any local people. It's definitely doesn't make any sense to use local people, because all it can be is a conflict. Local people who know local people might not want to express what they really think because they work here. They're part of the community, assuming that they disagree.
So what's your?
At this point in time, they said they were going to make another proposal from, I'm against this proposal, this one here, obviously, and I'd like to get another proposal based on the criteria that.
From the Moss Group.
Yeah, no, from the other people. The Moss Group do also, but I don't think they're qualified because they don't have the experience. So that's
Okay,
why
I'm lost. I was voting for it because I thought it was your item. So you don't want us to approve
I
this?
want to not approve it. I wanna
Okay,
turn it
all right,
down.
well, that's,
So you want to
I want to kill it.
So, okay, so when you
defer
say
it
you want
and
to
bring it
kill
back
it,
I'm
changed?
coming back later. That's all,
Okay.
with more bids.
So
That's all. With
not
more-
vote
you want
on
to put it back out to bid?
Basically, at this point in time, yes, I guess that's what you're saying.
I,
Yes, that's correct.
that I would,
Okay,
I would.
I'm not satisfied with any of the responses. Is that good?
That's
what
a
I'm
fine
really trying
reason.
to say.
What's the, Chad, what's the procedure here?
I think that you just want to defer it to the next meeting. The staff understands and they'll bring back an item.
Okay.
Speaking with the manager, I think.
I move to defer it. I'll move to defer it to the next meeting.
Second.
It's,
Okay.
I didn't know that Mr. Moss.
Is that enough time? Sorry.
Should be.
Yes, we already have the revised proposal.
Should be.
I'm sure you think it is, but let's.
Okay.
It's,
So
I
let's
didn't
have a
know
vote on
Mr.
it?
Moss, I thought Mr. Moss was just an architect.
Can we call it
Seal my name.
Ed or Ed?
Give it to Ed.
Or Brett?
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay,
Motion carries.
Okay.
Next item is 7E,
right.
a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida,
Your
approving
item.
R&G Engineering, Inc. and FG Construction LLC for sidewalk, asphalt, paver repair services on an as-needed basis, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion?
What's your thoughts, Ed?
I think this is fine, but I think we should not limit the manager to those two companies. They should be the approved things. But obviously, sometimes you're going to have things come up. You've heard today, you made comments, Ceci made comments about getting stuff repaired quickly rather than a long, detailed, drawn-out thing. So I think the manager should have these things, but I think she should also be able to go ahead and get other contractors, again, getting quotes, not long, detailed RFPs or anything else with things, and she has a basis of here, what the prices are, and be able to give it to other people other than just these people. That's all.
Vice Mayor?
So something I asked Andrea that this is a CCNA contract, or it wasn't. I can't remember what the answer was.
No,
It's not. Would this be something to have that type, or it's just not needed, right?
It's just a construction.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. Thanks.
And even if there were any type of CCNA type services required, these are considered, I think, minor improvements, which would be underneath the statutory.
So Chad, if we leave it the way it is, are we constricting the manager from going out and getting other people if we need other contractors involved in something?
Getting them done quickly?
No, we could always get quotes for the smaller projects as well.
Yeah, and we also get to the increase
So we
authority.
can do that, right, Chad?
Yes, this would allow you to, yes, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes, good. All right. Moved and then seconded?
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item 9A1, selection of interim village clerk and village clerk job announcement ad. Mayor Davy.
Can, Mayor Davy, can I ask a quick question? And if this is going to be a long conversation, we have a lot of people here from Waterkeepers that came, and
And we can pass the resolutions,
I'd like
I
to
think.
do I know this needs to be important, but if we could do that
That's
item
fair.
right
That's
now.
fine.
So,
let's do
and
that.
And I
let
think
them
the
come up.
resolutions, the ordinances may be
sorry,
fast, you think?
Don't jinx it.
No?
The next
Okay.
item is an ordinance on first reading, an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 4, Finance Division 2, Purchasing of the Village Code of Ordinances by updating the village's procurement provisions, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I think that quickly, right now it says $2,500. I noticed that a lot of the other cities are at $5,000, where you have to ask for 3 bids. Is there any appetite up here to look at that and increasing it a little bit more from the $2,500?
No, we moved it to, are we in the same, to 30,000?
Yeah, so there's two things here, right? You have the anything below $2,500, our manager can just go out and hire somebody. Doesn't have to get 3 proposals. If it goes above $2,500, you have to at least get 3 proposals. And then up to $30,000. Once it goes past $30,000, now you're in competitive bidding. You have to bring it back to council, get the approval. So you have that. So I just was looking at a couple of things look, I don't
To
I don't
increase it to
care.
5,000.
Yeah, I don't care if we keep it at 2,500. It doesn't matter. But when I was looking at
for
the
efficiencies, let's move it to
for the
5,000.
efficiencies, I was just looking at the
I
$2,500.
accept your-
When they put that to
Got it.
today's money, we're almost at 5,000, and all
Correct.
these other cities are at 5,000. It might be easier to get things done if we
let's
can
make
move
a motion
faster in
to
there.
amend.
I don't know,
Make a
but I just
motion
wanted
to
to bring
amend
that
the
up.
ordinance.
So it would be 5,030.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. That's,
Ed?
I have one more
Councilmember
suggestion on that particular thing. I think the limit should be $50,000. I think that basically we need three quotes, at least three, and get more. I don't think it has to be formal bids, but I do think this. The thing comes from the department director. He needs this. Todd needs something. Somebody, Chuck, Eric, Jake. So they need this thing approved, et cetera. The manager goes and they get the bids. She basically says, fine, they do it, and then Benjamin signs off on it. So we have check and balance that's just not one person, okay? That way, the manager is responsible to do it, to make the final decision, but she has to have Benjamin signing off that she's gone through the program to get the bids.
and
But you had three signatures there,
Well, yeah,
right?
three. The person who requested it,
The
like I said,
department
director,
head or
department
whatever, director head.
requested it, and that's how we do it.
and just to correct your English, stop using the word bids, right? You mean competitive. Not the word bids, but competitive quotes. Quotes,
You
yeah.
know, quotes.
So you're suggesting move it up to 50?
Yeah.
Fine.
Is there anything that we have to do? Do we have to, Chad, do we have to pass any type of resolution to make sure that we have the three signatures, or this could all just be part of this? We put it right in here
We can add that to the.
to this ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay.
We passed a resolution last time on 30.
All right, so is there any other changes?
So why
that
don't
are
we go
under
to
this
40?
Motion to amend before we
Can
vote
we
on the
just,
motion to amend?
for the motion to amend, can we articulate what the changes are? So for
Changes to section 282A would be purchases less than $5,000.
Right.
And section 282C would be 50,000. And those numbers, and the corresponding numbers within the paragraphs, within B and elsewhere would all be changed.
Can we compromise on 40? No, 50, you feel comfortable with 50, Madam Manager?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, second, it's
Checks and
amended.
balances are there.
I move as amended.
The 50, but with Ed's process.
Yes,
so
yes,
that-
yes.
Right, okay. So that motion's been made.
Is it
Second.
40 or 50?
50.
50.
50, okay,
10,
50.
5 and 50.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And
Motion
also to be clear, it was also to add the checks and balances.
Correct.
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 Okay.
Now we'll vote on the the ordinance as approved unless anybody's got more comments on it. Okay, let's vote on the ordinance.
I'm sorry, the second reading to this ordinance will take, I can't announce the day until we discuss rescheduling the March 10th meeting.
Okay.
Well,
At the next
there's no reason to announce it.
Okay, just
We'll
wanted to-
advertise for second reading ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Next item, an ordinance on second reading of the Village of Key Biscayne.
Wait, no, we haven't approved, we have to approve this on first reading. We just amended.
What are we doing?
The vote we
Yes.
just had was to amend.
So I move it as amended.
Right, it's already been moved.
What are we moving?
Move it as
This
amended.
would be a roll call
amendment
vote.
was-
Councilmember McCormick,
Yes.
Councilmember Moss.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moss. Councilmember Petros,
Yes.
Councilmember Segurola,
Yes.
Mayor Davy.
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo.
Yes.
And Councilmember London.
Please tell me what I'm doing.
You're voting for the amendment.
For all your changes.
For the ordinance as amended.
Yes.
The ordinance is passed on first reading. Next item is an ordinance on second reading, an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne,
for
Florida,
public reading.
amending Chapter 8, Environment of the Village Code of Ordinances by creating Article 9, Fertilizer Use relating to the use of fertilizers within the village, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Move it.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open for public comments.
Yes.
Colin Schladweiler. Did I do that okay? Was it close? All right. State your name, please, and address.
Yes, sorry. I'm juggling things.
Well, I agree with you.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. Hold on. I'll just go for it. I lost my page, but it doesn't matter.
Go for it.
Hi, my name is Colin Schladweiler. I'm the outreach coordinator at Miami Waterkeeper at 2103 Coral Way. I'm here as a proponent for this fertilizer ordinance, specifically the summertime ban within the ordinance.
As we all know, the water quality in Biscayne Bay is at a tipping point right now, and this is not just due to the nutrient runoff, but it's due to all different kinds of different pollution that we're seeing in our waters. But what we're focusing on today is the nutrient runoff, phosphorus and nitrogen from fertilizers in residential areas. I'm here today to be a proponent for that, because specifically for Key Biscayne is that you are basically a little island, a key right here in Miami, and you're surrounded by water. And as we know that every single day, with tides getting higher and things like that, that our lawns, everything that we're doing and the chemicals we're putting on them is becoming more basically compromised and could be at risk from that excess nutrient runoff. And I'm here to propose that, and as a proponent. I'll let my other colleagues take it from here.
Thank you. Kelly Cox.
Good evening, council members. My name is Kelly Cox. I'm the general counsel at Miami Waterkeeper. Address is 2103 Coral Way. I'm here today to speak in favor of the ordinance on fertilizer, item B1. As Colin mentioned, Biscayne Bay is at an ecological tipping point for nutrients. Our nutrient loads coming from non-point sources of pollution, things like stormwater runoff, are really degrading water quality. And the village of Key Biscayne has been particularly plagued by degraded nearshore water quality, and we've really seen that. And nutrients can exacerbate and contribute to these degraded conditions on our beaches and our waterways. So for example, we're experiencing a sargassum bloom here with the seaweed here on Key Biscayne. Adding a bunch of nutrients to a macroalgae bloom like that can just make the problem worse. So what we're considering here today is a measure that would help reduce the nutrient load getting into nearshore waters of Biscayne Bay and the Atlantic Ocean. What we're proposing in this ordinance is based off of a state model ordinance that was passed nearly a decade ago. It's in our state statutes. What we've done, and we've worked with Councilmember Petros on this, is we've revised that ordinance to be very, very specific to South Florida, to consider things like climate, our soil composition and chemistry, our rainfall levels, the temperature, the actual nutrient composition in the soil, and the requirements of this plant species that live here. We're in the subtropics, and the rest of the state is not in the subtropics. So we have really unique environmental conditions that require us amending that state model ordinance to be very South Florida specific. In particular, we're asking for things like a 50% slow release nitrogen in the ordinance. We're asking for 0% phosphorus application in fertilizers. We're asking for that extra critical summertime ban on fertilizer application. Why are we doing that? Because our turf grass and our plants and our landscaping grow year round. We don't have a dormant growing season here in South Florida, and so there's not really a need to address growth rates over the summer, which is our rainiest time of the year. We're also asking for a mandatory setback to create a 15-foot buffer of an area to limit fertilizer from being applied directly up to the water's edge. And we know that these fertilizer ordinances work. Almost 90 municipalities across the state have passed ordinances of this nature, so we're not reinventing the wheel here. We have places to look at over the past decade where they've been successful. And specifically, we even have instances of counties and municipalities that have conducted scientific research to measure quantitative results and change over time in nutrient levels and water quality conditions in their nearshore waters. So we look to Manatee County and Lee County, which have that data that show that you can change water quality with an ordinance of this type. This is also a cost-saving measure for the village of Key Biscayne and the landscapers that work here. And I really encourage you all today to move forward and pass this ordinance as a measure to improve local water quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Silverstein.
Hello, council members.
Hello. How are you?
Nice to see everybody. Good, thank you. Thank you. Taking a little break from maternity leave to come talk to you all today about this really important ordinance, and I'm thrilled to see you all take it up because I know this is a community that cares deeply about its waterways and water quality. And this ordinance, that, as Kelly mentioned, is really a win-win-win for the community, for the environment, and for everybody's pocketbooks because it will actually save money while keeping landscaping beautiful and the water sparkling. So this ordinance has already successfully been implemented in over 80 municipalities or similar ordinances around the state over the last 11 years. None of them have been repealed except for one in Naples that repealed it after Irma, and they are now reinstating it because it was effective, and they have found that a weaker ordinance has been impossible to enforce, and they're having water quality impacts as a result. So this ordinance has a great track record. It has not had an effect. It has, in fact, improved landscaping quality because it's reduced excess fertilizer, not necessary fertilizer. So when we apply fertilizer in the summer, because it's so rainy here, a lot of it almost immediately gets turned into pollution and turned into runoff and ends up not getting taken up by the plants, but ending up in the waterways where it causes algae blooms. And we all know that we're having major issues with too many nutrients in our waterways causing algae blooms. So this is a wonderful first step to make sure that we can all enjoy our waterways. We have beautiful, clear water that doesn't have algae blooms, and we can still enjoy wonderful landscaping. So I hope you will all consider this proposal very seriously. We're here to answer any questions. This is well supported by the science, and the strict ordinances in particular, and by strict I mean that include the summertime ban, is really key for getting this to work. And studies have been done that municipalities that have passed weaker bans have not had the same water quality effect. The community is not as aware of the ordinance being in law, and a lot of them have then shifted into having the stricter ordinances. So it's really key. I know this is perfect for this community, and you're all leaders in taking care of the waterways and the environment. So I think this is a great first step with dealing with the fertilizer runoff issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Kelly.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Kelly, again, at 2301 Coral Way. I'm a scientist at Miami Waterkeeper, and I've been working with a lot of this, looking at the fertilizer ordinance and the best ways to approach this, given that we have not only a concern about nitrogen and phosphorus in the waterways as from runoff and from leaching from plants and landscape, but we also need to look at the landscape at the same time. So in a lot of what we've been doing, we've been going back and forth with UF-IFAS to ask them for some direction with this. And we tried in looking at this to not only take what we hope to overall accomplish with this, which is to increase water quality, to have better water quality and less nitrogen and phosphorus in our waterways, but also so that we are still working with the landscapers. We're still working to keep the grass healthy. We're still doing both these things at the same time. Obviously, overall, basically what we're trying to accomplish is better water quality with this. This is why when we look at what UF-IFAS had represented as a good range, we chose something on the lower end of the range. And this lower end of the range is representative of something that should still be able to support the grass, the health, the turf, all of that, and at the same time accomplish the water quality goals that we hope to achieve. So this is something that where we tried to take everybody into consideration and say, yes, we can try, and that's what this has done in many places throughout the state. We have been able to get a strong ordinance where also there's still fertilizer being used, there's slow release nitrogen that's being used. There are other approaches that one can use when you do this, that it isn't just an old way that we've always done this. At the same time, when we did work with UF-IFAS, we did go through some of their training. They recommended that there are other things you can use besides nitrogen and phosphorus. You can use forms of iron, you can use other things that you could put in this, and they have different formulations. So there are certainly other approaches, and that's something that we would recommend when we mention something along these lines. I mean, basically, as we know, there has been an algal bloom going on in Biscayne Bay pretty much persistently since about 2010. And it's in about the central Biscayne Bay. We'd like to be able to have some effect on this. We know that when it comes to something like this, there is fertilizer as a problem, there's septic, there's sewage, there's multiple issues that contribute to this. If there is one thing that we can do that we can change, it would be good to approach it. And that is exactly what we are approaching when we use something like this fertilizer ordinance, as we have looked into places like the Tampa Bay where they were able to do a massive change with what was able to enter their waterways. One of the ways in which they saw reductions in nitrogen in their waterways was because they have a strong fertilizer ordinance like this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Karen Bieber.
Hi, Karen Bieber, 798 Crandon. I urge you please to pass this ordinance. We've had lots of workshops and panels and ongoing discussion about the water issue. And I don't believe that we have to know 100% of everything in order to do something. And we know that this is something that we can do. So I ask you please to pass this. It's very important. And the second thing is, I ask you to please consider declaring a water emergency. This is a horrible situation. It's untenable. We see what's going on in Fort Lauderdale. There's no reason it can't happen here. So I'm not really sure what that would mean as far as action goes, but I think it would send a message to the residents and to other municipalities, to the county, that you do take this very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, anybody else want to speak to this issue? I'm going to close public comments. Discussion.
I would like to speak a little bit.
I just had one question for you. I'm assuming
Before we
you've
call
taken
it.
all of their comments in. And
100%. This
Okay.
is and anybody can jump up if they want. This is exactly what the water keepers were recommending that we do. And before we go to take a vote, I do want to thank Kelly and Rachel and Elizabeth and everybody else who's been working with me tirelessly to try to get this right. And anytime you do something like this, you realize all the nuances. So I really appreciate it. Also, our village staff has been working very hard to try to make sure that we're not putting an undue burden on the landscapers and the other people that actually have to provide the services and make our lawns look good. The horticulturist, Ariel, thank you for chiming in recently. I know you came in late to the party, but I appreciate your advice and thoughts. And Todd and Dario with code enforcement. I mean, everybody's been looking at this. We've had a comprehensive approach. And one of the things that has come up is a concern about our athletic fields. Obviously, the village green is artificial turf, but the people that manage our athletic fields are concerned, and they have sent a letter, I believe, to us directly, correct?
Yes.
Saying that they don't feel like they can make our fields resilient enough by having to abide by the ban through the summer, because we resod in the summer, and that's when the fields are quiet and they need this maximum growth. And I've spoken to water keepers. They do have some research from the University of Florida that suggests that this is not as impactful as people think. Now, we live on an island. We have water around us. I don't think any of us believe that fertilizer is the only reason that our water's bad, but we certainly know that we're at a tipping point, and any little thing we can do may make a significant difference. So I fully support this. The one thing that I just wanted to bring up was we had considered doing a carve-out for our 2 athletic fields, that the village could work with the vendor to determine a good way to do this and maybe not hold them quite as accountable, which is that they couldn't put any fertilizer on there. And I'll be honest, I'm conflicted. There's a part of me that feels like we should give this a try just like it is and see what our fields look like in a year, but that means that we're taking a chance that our fields are going to be compromised, and it may reduce playtime or scheduling. So I'm opening that up to you guys to think about.
So I'm sorry, what is your recommendation?
What's your are you making a motion to pass it with the changes?
I want you to consider a small
But what is
exception.
your recommendation? I'm asking for your recommendation.
My recommendation would be to pass it as it is and give it a try, but no, I want you guys to know that we may have a problem with our fields.
Something like
Councilmember Lennon.
I misunderstand. We have artificial turf on our fields.
No, but on other fields that we take care of.
St. Agnes.
Excuse me.
K8.
I didn't understand why we were fertilizing.
Right. The 2 other fields
problem, I understand.
that we take care of.
Right. No, I understood. Councilmember McCormick, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so my concern about not fertilizing those fields when the landscapers suggest they feel like they need it in the summer would be have they given any indication, I guess my question is, as to what the impact would be? So, like, what would they expect it to look like if we did give it a try? Are we getting to where we are going to need to redo them? Because having sat through that process once or once and a half.
I think Todd might
because we
be the
had some
better person
redos.
to answer that, who's also been discussing this with me.
Could it possibly language to the effect of?
Hold on. Let Todd speak to this, then you both can speak.
We have the same vendor maintaining our athletic fields that other cities that have contemplated this. So basically, they sent us the same letter. They sent some other cities. But in our conversation, we all want to do this. And we're talking about maybe this summer doing a test on an area of a field, allowing them to use some here, not here, and seeing what the field looks like at the end of the year. Because we don't want to not have the option, but we don't want to say, well, we never will go 100%. Basically, it's 4% of the village that we're talking about, but we know what that 4% means to the community. We know what it means to our athletic programs. So we're not saying that we won't move to this point on that 4%.
I think it's 0.4%.
0.4%, I'm sorry. 0.4%. So let us, and we're willing to take suggestions, and maybe if you say, you know, we'll try some of our normal technique here, and you say iron and whatever else, we'll do that there. And if at the end of the summer we say, wow, there really isn't a difference, and you know, I think we're
But
open
we
to
would
moving
need to do
forward.
a small carve out.
Laredo, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wonder if language helped me to the effect that a phased-in period not to exceed December 31st of this year, so that it gives you that kind of wiggle room.
Oh, I like that idea.
I'm for the motion. What I would like to add is to give Todd the authority that in the interim, especially since the summer we may not be here, and the deterioration brought to him by our landscaper, that look, if this is what's happening, we have to fertilize it now, it's just going to get worse. He should have the authority on those fields to say, go ahead and fertilize it. And that way we don't risk losing the fields by not fertilizing it.
Rachel, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just had a question. Is the major concern the summertime ban? Is that really the?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, from the research, it seems like most of the fertilizer applied during the summer is basically running off and not getting taken up by grasses. So, in that respect, it shouldn't affect the athletic field, but I definitely understand and hear the concern. And I forgot to mention earlier that we also have the executive director of the Waterkeeper Alliance here, and from Lake Ontario Waterkeeper, we have Mark Yagi and Mark Matson here to witness proceedings tonight, who I know that's Councilmember McCormick, so I forgot to mention that earlier, but yeah,
So I'll make a motion.
I definitely understand the sensitivity there.
May I make a motion?
Communities have treated the athletic field issue differently. You know, I defer to everybody on that, but it's.
I'm sorry, Councilman, I need to be clear. What are you
I would
recommending?
I
You've
would
done the
like
most.
to make a phase-in
For public lands
for public land
and parks.
through September 30th, so that we can do this test and pass this language as it is. I do want to say one other thing, that one of the key components of this is educating our village that we're doing this and that they can't use the fertilizer. This is a difficult
Well, that's what I was going to do. That was my follow-up
This is a
question.
difficult thing to enforce.
Right.
So but our community wants this, and we need to educate our community on how important it is. So I know at the first passing, it had a huge, robust community engagement component that we absolutely need to do.
Correct.
So I move it as amended.
Hold on, Councilmember London?
I'd like to amend the motion after listening to this young lady saying that the fertilizer is going to wash off in the summertime anyway. In effect, you're saying that, and the landscaper says he needs it, and obviously we're not going to know till he not needs it, till he not uses it, where he really needed it. So I'd like to amend the motion, that the motion passes, but we give Todd the authority, if he sees with the landscaper coming back to him, because we're gone most of the summer, so we're not here to do anything.
But if this is public lands, guys, that we're taking care of, we can actually implement the policy that we're not going to use these fertilizers except.
Exactly.
So we can basically say, we can say, all right, look, we're going to allow public lands for a certain period of time to September 30th. We will allow it to be phased in for these, but as a policy by us for the village, we're going to say, no, we're going to try and do what Ed just said. And if Todd sees.
But the language should be in the ordinance. The language should be in the ordinance.
We don't have to amend the ordinance.
No, I don't think we need to amend, because we're allowing, your plan allows the phasing in on public lands. We are the public land holders, so we'll be the ones to say, we're not going to implement this unless it's dire
Absolutely
straits.
necessary.
So let's do it that way. Let's keep this simple. Let's not.
So move that in as is?
Yeah.
Is that what you're suggesting?
I think move with your phase
With the phase
idea.
into September 30th?
Yes.
So is it okay if it just says the provisions of this article shall not apply shall not apply for village-owned or maintained athletic fields until September 30th,
No,
2020?
but not
2020.
until, yeah. Well, use better words, a phase-in period.
Well, but it is a phase.
Okay, the same thing.
Let's just
You
keep
got
the
the
language
spirit.
simple.
It's a good idea.
Duly seconded, right, I think? Motion.
Good. So you're happy with this?
Yes.
All right, let's move it.
Who seconded the motion? I apologize.
I think
All
I
those
did.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, this is a roll call on the second reading for the adoption of the ordinance.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Moss,
Yes.
Councilmember Petros,
Yes.
Councilmember Sigorola,
Yes.
Mayor Davey,
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo,
Yes.
Councilmember London,
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted on second reading. Next item, Mayor, is an ordinance on second
No, we're going to
reading.
go back to 9A1.
Okay.
We just
Selection
skip
of
that.
interim village clerk and village
Yeah,
clerk
'cause
job
I don't know how
announcement
long
ad.
I'm going to stay. All right, so as you all know, our clerk is fleeing us. So we need to make a decision as to what we're going to do in the interim. We had a recommendation from the clerk, Melissa Solano is here, but we also had a recommendation by council members to bring back Conchita Alvarez, who has been our clerk since, well, Guido was the first guy, right? And then after him, we had Conchita was here. She knows the system. So I want to open it up to conversation about that. I think tonight should just be about the interim, but I would like us to have a real conversation about what the job description is that we're going to put out. So I'd like to put that on the next agenda, if that's okay.
Perfect.
You
Are
know,
we going to hold off putting out a job description? I mean,
That's, I think that's what he means.
it's just
I
going to
mean,
delay us
I know it's
getting
going to delay us
applicant.
by a month, but I just feel like there's a lot to adopt. I've been talking to different
Yes.
people who have different ideas about it, and I think
Okay.
I want to have a full, before we go forward.
I agree,
put out a job
100%.
description. This is critical. This is one of our three.
We can make whatever,
So-
for the lessons learned, we
Right,
can.
exactly,
So I
exactly.
think I would like to make, I mean, Madam Manager, I'm sorry that you're leaving us, but I think we're blessed. Thank you for reaching out by having Conchita available. I mean, it's just a perfect transition. She has the experience, et cetera, and I'd like to move that we hire her.
You can speak.
As soon as possible, because she's leaving Friday. So I think we need to hire her effective tomorrow even, otherwise it won't have any transition. That would be my.
Councilmember Moss,
So yeah, I've been
Vice Mayor Moss, sorry.
I've been putting a lot of thought into the two options that we have. One option came from Katie, where we could bring back Conchita, which I'm fine with. I love Conchita, and she knows the village well, so I have no problems with that. I think we're kind of in a win-win situation, actually. I think the other option is a recommendation. It is the recommendation that came from our clerk, who's the sitting clerk, who knows what's happening today, and made a recommendation that Melissa would be the best person to take on the stuff that's happening right now. And I take that with a lot of weight, because she is the person sitting there. I tried to call Conchita. I wasn't able to get through. Unfortunately, I tried to call her today a couple of times. But I just wanted to ask a little bit. But my understanding was that she can only work part-time, and I just don't. I spoke to Melissa. I called her last night to ask her a little bit about why she would want to be in this position. She's amazing to talk to. She's been here for 7 years. She's very hungry about proving herself, that she can get stuff done, that she really wants to work and have an opportunity. And I don't think it's a bad idea to think about not losing this opportunity that we have to maybe bring somebody who's within the village, because personally I would like to hire somebody within the village for a position like this, somebody who knows us, that doesn't have to relearn the situation, that could possibly be one of the candidates who would be a permanent position to try them out and see if we like them or if we don't like them. I mean, and if they like us and they don't like us, because we will, if we go back, when we go out, and we are going to go out and advertise and look for people, we're going to be starting from zero. And let's say that Melissa is the person that we decide, but we haven't tried her out yet. We have an opportunity to try her out. So I would actually make the motion that we bring Melissa on board as our interim for, I don't know how many months that we may need to have her. I would lower the pay down to, I believe, $65,000. I think that a clerk for a small town or a small village doesn't need to be like such a high, level paid. I think that we can reduce that and have an opportunity for someone to work their way up in that position. So I think this also gives an opportunity to reduce the price of the salary, bring somebody in who's looking to do very hungry to do a lot of work. I talked to some of her bosses; they're amazed with her attitude and how she puts forth. I also talked to her if she feels confident to be able to sit up here, because she's not a certified clerk, which I don't think is a must to have. I think it's more of a certification to show that you've gone through certain training. I'm sure she would be willing to do it. But she has worked under Jenny, and I think we should give her an opportunity. So my motion would be to give her an opportunity to try it out. But again, if we lose, I mean, if I lose that vote, it's still a win on either side. But that's where I sit, and I want to make sure we keep that opportunity open.
Councilmember Petros? Okay, we have a second for Vice Mayor Moss's motion. Councilmember Petros.
I would like to look at this a little bit differently. Obviously, I contacted Conchita to see if she would be able to come on an interim basis, and she expressed a willingness and a desire to do that. She has experience that I think is very important right now, especially as we discuss the idea of a general obligation bond and some things specific to elections that are coming up in the fall, because she does understand the process and she is a certified clerk. That, however, doesn't mean that we wouldn't necessarily give an opportunity to Melissa if she was interested. I think there could be a blending of these two roles. Melissa is currently an employee in the village. I can't speak to, but maybe the manager can speak to what she's currently doing and whether or not there's availability for that. And if there is, we could have a blended component with the experience and knowledge of our former clerk coming back on a certain part-time basis, and potentially even training Melissa and giving her an understanding of what the role takes. And then if she wanted to apply for the position, when we open it and we look at what we exactly want with a clerk, because there is a lot of discussion of how this role, which is not only a clerk, but our one person that works with us, that answers to us. We have 3 charter appointees, and this is one of them, and it's a really important role that we may have a better way to frame this job description. We played with it a little bit when Jenny came on. I don't think we necessarily got it 100% right, and I agree that we could come back and have a more robust discussion, but I do think there's great value in having the experience of our municipal clerk that worked here for so many years.
Councilmember Segurola?
I like Katie's idea.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have the motion on the floor. I think, in my perspective, I agree with Vice Mayor. I don't think we lose either way. I would, my recommendation would be not a blending, but maybe having Conchita on call, so we can bring her in. Well, you can after I'm done. So that she can be there to assist with the things. I'm assuming the manager for Indian Creek will not forget us entirely, and if there are questions about things that are going on, you'll be able to assist the interim if the interim is there.
Anytime.
Okay, so I don't have so much of a concern, but if there are things, because to your point, we're going to do a bond, and you'll be involved in your own projects at some point when we're going through the bond process and the elections. I think we could bring Conchita in as our consultant on that. I know you hate the word, and I apologize for that, but I think she could come in on those interim, because she does want to work on a part-time basis, as I understand it. So that would be my recommendation is that we bring in Melissa Solano as our interim, but then we talk to Conchita about coming in, because to the point, we'd have to negotiate something more with Conchita, I think, right away. So I just think I think your point makes sense. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, you kind of said it. But I would agree that I support the idea of Melissa, and while I know that Jenny will be available, I also like the idea of having somebody here in the village to draw on as Jenny gets increasingly busy. I like the idea of Conchita. Yeah, well, I mean, that, I didn't say it because I think it goes without saying, but I like the idea of maybe using her as an as needed basis, maybe if she could somehow bill us hourly and that kind of thing, because I think, I do think it's a full-time job. And I'm so grateful that she's willing to lend her expertise. And I think that we could find a way to really make that work in that way.
Councilmember Laredo?
Yes, I want to, it's terrible that we put her in a position to discuss somebody on the interim, is qualified person and potentially could be the permanent one. But I mean, from the point of view of efficiency and common sense, if we pass the opportunity of bringing Conchita in, physically in, not to sit in her house and we call her when we need to be there, whatever title, given this is an election year, there is a potential of the bond issue. Her experience, she has no learning curve. And Melissa has a learning curve, and she candidly admits it. She's never been a clerk. So, I mean, this blending is a possibility, but with a heavy tilt towards Conchita and physically being there rather than, we have her on contract for her to call. It is a blessing. And I was so happy when I saw her because I thought she didn't want to. I haven't been there until then, and she's got the spirit. She's a resident. She was here at creation. She has the institutional memory for many, many years, and it's just something that it's a perfect solution. I think she should be hired, whatever title you want to give her, and to come so many hours a day that she can allow herself that she would, and we need to delegate to one of us. I would suggest Katie to work this out, because the manager, here's what we got when we drafted the charter. Maybe we didn't figure this out. She can't be involved. It has to be one of us. You know what I mean? Or a group that you appoint, because they can't wait. Out of today, we have to have at least one or two of those bodies in there, because she leaves Friday.
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
So yeah, I'll amend my motion to. And there's something that Councilmember Laredo that you brought up that we're a little bit worried about. So I think that what we should do is first of all, we don't know if Conchita's okay with this or not, but we have to ask her. But I would rather ask Conchita if she could be on an on-call basis and leave it up to Melissa to see when she needs something, because she'll know, like, if she starts getting burdened, like, I don't know how to do this, and there's too much, there's a bond coming up, she's going to start picking up the phone and start using Conchita. I think it's a better system than to have Conchita sitting there physically. You're going to have, things like, you want to do it my way, I want to do it it's like, leave it up to that person that's sitting in that seat and give them the tools, since they're not as experienced, saying, hey, you can call them. So my amendment to the motion would be to see if Conchita would be okay with being on an on-call basis, and leave it up to our interim clerk to make that decision and that call when she needs it. I also talked to Jenny. Jenny said she will be available anytime to pick up the phone and help. So, if Melissa needs some help finding a record or something like that, we have some support there too. But I think Conchita would be great, and she knows a lot as well. So that would be my amendment to it.
So that's your motion?
I will second your motion, your amendment, with the proviso that we go ahead and the manager, or I guess it would be, enter into an agreement with Conchita on an hourly basis to pay her as we need her.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's our.
Well, okay, but somebody has to do it. So you're going to do it, Michael? Okay, then you're going to do it and to an agreement with her on an hourly basis when we need her. And that's how we work it with her. That's all.
We'll bring it back to the council. I do think we should have a member of the council assist, as Councilman Laredo said. And I think that, just to be clear, under the motion, you would have Melissa be named as the interim clerk, right? Okay, and Conchita, we would engage her as an as-needed basis.
The executive clerk.
All right, so you're saying that,
Hold on, Councilmember Petros was after Councilmember Lund, so I apologize for that.
I think that we should do this in reverse. I think we should have Conchita on a part-time basis of, let's say, 4 hours a day. And I think she should be coming to our meetings and taking notes at our meetings for at least 2 months, with potentially Melissa sitting by her side, making sure so that we have that handoff in a more comfortable way. And I think that someone has to have ownership of the department, for lack of a better word, and it's somebody that has that experience and can train Melissa. It's different that if you are just calling as needed, you're going to try to do things on your own before you make that call. And you're going to try, in this way, somebody's sitting there giving you hands-on training. Yes, it's 2 people in one position, but I think it's worth it for the interim basis to provide that support to someone who could potentially be our full-time clerk.
Did you have something to add?
Yes. If it wasn't for Conchita, I would have never been placed, obviously, here in the seat. I served as a deputy clerk as well as a chief of staff. I wasn't certified at the time, and I filled in for Conchita many times. She allowed me the opportunity to grow, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I have that same belief in Melissa. I don't start until March 2nd. So I have 2 weeks in between. I'll be more than happy to come at no charge, no cost. I will be more than happy to train. I would have liked more time to train her, really, within these 2 weeks. But I would be more than happy. I'm just offering that as.
Thank you.
Appreciate
May I?
it. Thank you.
Councilmember Laredo.
You lost me a little bit. You know how candid I am, Jennifer. You spoke of the value of Conchita, both as institutionally and also to you personally.
Absolutely.
Right, and yet you don't support her coming in.
No, I never
before-
said that.
Okay, well, but let me make sure.
No, I'm sorry. She put me in this position, and she wanted me to grow, same way I would like for her to grow.
I understand, but what we're
I never
deciding
said
today,
I'm-
I take it back. I apologize, Madam Manager. First of all, you have, trust me on this one, you have your hands full. You have a wonderful job coming up, and I recommend to you to focus on that. And thank you for offering.
I'm off for 2 weeks.
I understand. But what we're suggesting, this is why it's so uncomfortable, but we have to discuss this, about an individual, when we have somebody by sheer luck who has all the qualifications, certificates, who can come in and do that training.
Absolutely.
It just seems to me that it's a no-brainer that she can come in 4 hours a day with Melissa on her side and grow. The other way is we're taking somebody with no experience and putting in as our village clerk in a particularly difficult 7 or 8, 9 months. I mean, we have the possibility of the bond issue. We have elections coming up and all the registrations that implies. I think we really, really need to bring her in 4 hours a day physically with just like you express, Petros, training Melissa, who then, and she needs to know that, that this will be a competitive position, perhaps. We're not going to.
That's what Laredo's done. Okay. Certainly. Come on up.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mayor and Manager and council members. I am in deep gratitude for even the possibility and recommendation of Madam Clerk. I've been with the village for 6 years, and 5 years under her mentorship and guidance, I've learned extraordinary work ethic. My skill set has excelled. I worked in multiple departments with variability with different directors before and with a former council and a former mayor, and I have had the ability to be able to learn so many things directly related to the clerk's office and with the council members. And so it's been extraordinary However, I've been hearing you speak, so I'm listening to what you're saying, and my above focus is what is best for the village. So wherever I'm needed, I'm open and available for that. I do absolutely know that, she has given me the confidence and belief system because I know exactly what I can do and what I am available for to handle. However, I understand what the needs are and the scope that needs to be widened. So either way, right now I'm in the fire department, the fire rescue department under Chief Lang, and I've been given that opportunity. So the opportunity to grow is all that I had asked for, and I was even given that without even knowing. So I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity, and however it is that you choose to decide, I do know that my skill set, my expertise has been utilized in only a few days in the fire department extraordinarily, and I will continue there as such. And so if your choice is however it is, it's fine with me also. But I just wanted to be able to speak because I am present and available for questions too about how I can provide service for the village and the council and the clerk's office. And I do have a lot of experience in either department, whether it's upstairs, downstairs, or across the street. So thank you. I appreciate the time and opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Councilman McCormick.
Melissa, can I ask you a question, just since you did make yourself available?
Please, ma'am. Thank you.
If it's not uncomfortable, given that we're discussing this as an interim position, how are you feeling about the idea that this is essentially like a temporary position with at the end would be a process where other candidates are considered as well? Like I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about that.
No, absolutely. I'm very aware of that. I mean, my availability to say yes to something is because that's how I've been since the beginning. As I started as an administrative assistant under the manager. And so I feel right now at my fullest capacity, where my focus can be, would be best if it's at 100. And if I'm going to invest, I want to invest in something that's going to be continued long-term. So I feel that would be best exactly where I am, just because I can put 100% focus on it and then develop whatever is necessary for my chief or director or department or village or what the manager's desires are. But if I was placed because the need was there for the clerk to have someone, that office was necessary, I would be available for that too, to the 100% capacity that I would be given for the interim. But I'm good either way. I would prefer, though, to continue.
Melissa?
Yeah.
Sorry. I would prefer to continue
where I am, because
Where you
I
are.
just was placed there. So my work ethic is really, really high integral. So once I'm given something, I really want to be able to provide the best service and be available for that. So if it's going back and forth and then learning something new, I would want, if I'm given that opportunity, to be given that as I can really say that this is what is going to be for my future. And then I would put 200% and then be brought back into the fire department. I mean, I would still do that if necessary. However, I would just prefer to grow and develop where I can stay.
Councilmember Levin.
Melissa, you're familiar with what Jenny does,
Yes?
and you know the tests or the requirements of the job?
Yes.
Do you feel you're qualified? I mean, not technically qualified, being a certified clerk. She wasn't a certified clerk. But do you think you're qualified, not to do 100%, because possibly you might need guidance from Jenny or Conchita or somebody else, but basically to perform the functions as you know them?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We have a motion on the floor. Has anybody got any more comments?
I do.
What?
I mean, if I heard Melissa correctly, she said that she would prefer to stay in the fire department. If we can't here right now tell her that more likely than not, she's going to move to become the permanent clerk. So we're not talking interim necessarily. Did I misunderstand you?
Well, I wasn't, not quite. So what I was saying was that if I'm given the opportunity to go into a certain position, I would want to be able to grow and develop there. But I've been moved, as some of you know, a few times, so I want to be able to do my best focus and capability and develop where I'm given. So the investment would be to put me here, put me there. I want to be able to have productivity and efficiency and outcomes that are necessary for the village as a whole. So wherever you feel is best, however, of course, I would like to be able to do that to the fullest capacity.
But you understand that this is an interim position, there's no guarantees of it going beyond after we've interviewed and gone through the process, correct?
Correct. That's why I had the opportunity to be able to say that I just rather be where I can continue and not interim.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is that although I have 100, thank you so much for those who have reached out to me, and I know that I'm capable, absolutely.
Well, okay, then let's be clear about that.
Then she's brought back to the fire department.
Yeah, it's a little.
What I'm saying is
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I'm more confused, actually.
Okay.
So you're saying you
we're
want the
making a big
opportunity
mistake
to
here.
apply for the permanent position, is that correct? Is that what you're saying, or no?
No, sir.
So you're saying
What
you
I'm saying
want,
is that I am infinitely gratitude for the opportunity because I know the belief and the confidence and the skill set that I have that have been given to me by the mentorship and guidance of Jenny. I'm 100% available. However, what I'm saying is if I'm going to be placed in another department, I want to be able to develop, grow, and stay there with longevity so I can give my absolute 100% service
so
to
I
the
guess my
village.
follow-up is, I'm sorry, but my follow-up would be what Councilmember Petros just said. I mean, there is no guarantee that you'd be staying in the clerk's
Correct.
department.
So what I was listening to tonight was what the needs were for it to rearrange the job description, to have someone who has the accredited. I know that I could do that. However, with all these other things and variables that are in place that you're reviewing, I feel now that's why I was speaking, that I just prefer to be where I am, to develop where I
Okay.
am.
Okay.
And that you would feel comfortable for what you
Then
need.
fair enough.
My scope is for the village as a whole, whatever's necessary.
That's fair.
Thank you
That's
for your
absolutely- Thank you for your
Thank you.
honesty. Thank you.
Thank you for getting up and speaking and telling us how you felt.
Thank you. And for sitting here so long.
So we,
You want to withdraw your motion?
I guess, yeah, I'll withdraw the motion.
So basically, you don't want the job.
We want
You don't wanna be
to
in-
bring her.
No, but you don't want to.
Okay.
No, but it
I'll
has to be
second the
what
motion
you,
to bring in Conchita. I mean, we're going to have to deal with a contract.
Yes.
Um,
You'll handle it, or?
I'll handle it. I'll.
Because this
Up to you,
is in-
Michael, and come back to
And
us.
I'll get with her. I'll start this week. I'll call her tomorrow and we'll get something back to you guys next meeting.
I second it.
Or, I mean, if
how
need be,
can
I may come
we need to
sooner.
have her in place.
Well, that's what I was just thinking. We may have to have a special meeting like next. Are you guys all around next week?
Yes.
I mean, can,
Can't she just be covered by some sort of short-term spending for the next? Sure.
Chad, tell us what we can do in order to have a seamless ethical transition here.
Or better still, just get it done, Chad, legally.
Look, we can engage her, and if you appoint her today, we would just need to know some parameters on the business terms. If you want to give us a cap until the next meeting, I mean.
We
need
delegate.
something.
Why don't we just delegate it to
We
Michael?
delegate it to Michael.
Let him
If
just
you
do
feel,
it.
Okay.
you feel
Let him
okay?
negotiate it, let him come up back and do
Fine,
a
but
deal. That's all.
give me some
Because
cap.
we need her to
Come on, let's move on.
Let's also remember we have an assistant, Miriam, so
Right.
she may not need to be here on a full-time basis, and I think,
But,
yes.
Petra, let's just move
Michael,
on.
take it.
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
work it out.
We move that she be interim, in the conditions
work it
where you
out.
fully delegated to get it done.
So the
Let's-
motion is that you name Conchita interim and
Yes.
that you delegate to the mayor the authority to execute
Right.
an agreement with her, a
Right.
letter.
All right.
And the mayor's, yeah,
Good.
Yes,
We'll get-
period.
we'll
To
get
be
on that
approved
tomorrow.
at the next meeting.
Yes,
Fine.
to be
can,
Ratified.
what do you mean approved?
ratified. All right.
No, wait, but.
can we also take some steps about trying to start the ball rolling on hiring a permanent person?
Well, I think the next meeting, I think we should have a job description. I think we have a job description you've all worked on. I want some input from the clerk. I've had input from people in the community about different ideas about what's going on with clerks.
And
out in the
Conchita can give
universe.
us some
And
ideas.
Conchita can also.
If it's possible, could you forward around the job description as we wrote it for you, Jenny?
I think this
And
is it.
also any comments,
it's in
oh,
our-
right,
it's in our-
can you add to it your comments about any changes? No?
It's all there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
And-
call the question then.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Wait, this is
Aye.
not the job description we.
No, it's
approved.
not. We're just
No,
talking
this is
about the
not-
interim.
No.
Okay.
The mayor's
That's
got it
not,
right.
that's not the job description,
No.
absolutely.
No,
not.
no. Can you send the job description as we developed it for you and any feedback that you would, if you were to redo it, what you would do differently? Because I do think while we are so lucky to have Conchita willing and able to come back, it is a full-time job you're vacating. And we talked about all of these needs that we have for having someone who could handle the job. There are, if she's not coming back full-time, I think we should be moving quickly
Right.
to look for a permanent clerk.
Absolutely.
And just to clarify again, because this was a discussion item, again, the council finds it time sensitive, given the vacancy
Yes,
of the clerk, and it needs to be a roll call. Please, Jenny.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Councilmember Petros,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia-Rola,
Yes.
Mayor Davy,
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo,
Yes.
Councilmember London,
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick,
Yes.
and Vice Mayor Moss.
Yes.
Motion carries. Now, next item.
Poor Conchita.
She got away.
Next item is an ordinance on second reading, an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Section 2-21, Defense of Officials in Ethic Matters to provide for the cost of defense of an elected official as further provided herein, providing for severability and providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
So this was discussed at the last meeting?
I'm sorry, motion
Oh, I'm sorry.
seconded?
I second it for discussion.
And who made the motion?
I'll make the motion to.
And who seconded? Thank you.
Where is this?
It's the legal fees. I would suggest, maybe you can help me. My concern and Ed's concern narrows, I think that, you correct me, focuses primarily on setting the rate. And I know that we have the Florida Bar guidelines that you all suggested. Can we put in language that says and/or, I don't want to call it competitive bids, but that the manager would have the ability to go out and do market comparison other than the baby, because, you know, like Ed said last time, you know, it's the people involved are the ones setting the rules. It's sort of not very much free market.
I mean, philosophically, I don't have a problem with that, but I just don't know how you can do that with lawyers.
Well, you can shop around, you know.
Well, here's the thing. The ordinance, as you recall, requires someone who has specialty in this area of law. There really aren't a whole lot of people like that. So if you do some sort of market analysis, it's going to be a very small pool, and my guess is they'll all be at about the same or close to each other.
I just would get a lot more comfort, I know, with some language that is sort of flexible, rather than the bar rules. And I know what you're saying. It's a tough call.
Actually just popped into my head. Maybe something can be put into there that you use the Florida Bar definition as for a reasonable rate, and if the parties involved don't agree, it goes to some sort of arbitration, where a third party, an arbiter, will decide what a reasonable rate is. That would be.
I think that, I mean, you know, I'm not a big fan of this ordinance. I think it's unnecessary. I don't think that we need to be going through this. I think we're making it more complex than it really needs to be. The way that it is in the code right now is that unless it's an ethics issue, you have to come to council and ask. We can at that point say whether we think it's reasonable or not, and say we're willing to pay it or not. You know, I think Councilmember McCormick brought this up last week or 2 weeks ago when we met, that the reason why we were looking at doing an ordinance like this is so that we don't deter people from running because they're scared that they might be falsely accused of something and then they have a big bill to pay. And I mentioned that that had never crossed my mind when I was running.
Neither did I.
And the only people who might think that when they're running are probably people who we don't want to be up here, who thinking like, I mean, why would you be thinking of that before you get up here? I just don't think you would. And then if somebody falsely accuses you of something, it's very evident that that happens. It would be very easy to come to your council members and say, fellow council members, I have an issue here. Obviously, somebody's accusing me of something. I need to get an attorney. I got this attorney. They cost, whatever, $250 an hour. I think it's reasonable. Can you give me the permission to take this on? And we would make a decision right there. I don't understand why we have to take this to the manager, and the manager has this approval authority, and then we have to figure out what reasonable is and how that scale is going to be put together. And then if she decides not to agree with it, then they have to come here in a proceeding. And I mean, right now, we should just do it from the council level. And that's the way it is right now. My motion would be, let's just keep it the way it is in the code right now and not make this change at all, because I think it's unnecessary to do it. I don't really see the big changes that we're making, and except that a person can go to the manager and manager can approve the fees. And if we're unhappy with it, well, too bad, because it's in our code that we have to do that. And by the way, if somebody is, convicted of something that they really did, and then in our code it says that we're going to get paid back, well, good luck trying to get that money back. And it could be millions of dollars by the end of a really horrific issue that was actually found guilty. I say we keep it the way it was in the code and just move on, because I think this is adding more complexity than we really need.
The problem with that is that if you keep it at the council level where people have to come to us, then you don't take the politics out of it. It becomes a political issue as opposed to a straightforward application of whatever the law or the rule is. So the purpose of the ordinance is to take it out of that realm altogether.
I get what your purpose is, I really do, and I appreciate all the work you've done on this. I was listening to Brett from the back. I kind of agree with where he's going. I get what you're saying, but we are getting into the weeds on this. What's a reasonable fee? Where are we going with this? I don't know. I just feel like leave it alone.
Mike?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
But one thing I have, maybe this clears everything up. By request of the village official, the village may, in its discretion, determine when to provide for legal defense of any action proceeding brought against it, such official for action missions rather than in the course and scope of his duties of serving a public purpose, period, right? When such official is charged or a witness. So one needs to be charged or a witness. In other words, you're saying that, if I understand this, so we need to provide, they call me and ask me to go become a witness for something. I then hire a lawyer to go with me?
That is the one expansion to the case law that I wrote into there, just to make it as expansive as possible. That is not required by law now. That was my addition.
Okay, but it's the case law. The case law.
The case law is charged or sued or under investigation. Okay. It does not apply to witnesses. You can choose to go in with an attorney if you're a witness.
But no, my point being is that the first part of it, if I understand it, says that, okay, you've been charged or whatever happens. Now you come to council and say, will you pay my legal defense? Is that correct?
Correct.
So in other words, this does not obligate the village to pay legal defense unless we think it's justified.
Correct.
Oh, but it's the manager that makes a decision.
Sorry?
The manager would be making the decision.
Yes, manager.
It gives you the discretion to pay from the beginning or to pay at the end.
Fine, okay.
Yeah. Because
we have that discretion right now as a council.
Under Florida law.
May in discretion, so the village could be council.
No,
Through the manager, the way it's written.
The way it's written, Councilmember London, is that the manager would make the decision. Without this ordinance in place, if someone wanted the village to pay for their legal expense up front, they would have to come to the village council for that.
Yeah.
Without this in place.
That's fine. In other words,
without this in place, which is my motion on the
Lewis
table.
does all his bad things, right? He usually does. So now he's been.
I get caught.
He gets caught. Usually he doesn't get caught. He's been getting away with it for years. But this time he gets caught. So when he gets caught, he comes to us and says, listen, I've been charged with this or whatever. I want to hire a counsel. We say, okay, fine. Or we say, hey, good riddance.
Yeah. Well, you could say good riddance, and if you're found not guilty, then we'll pay.
Well, we could.
Because you have to.
But it would be the council's discretion. That's all. That's what it
the
is now.
council's discretion is that just whether or not you're going to pay up front.
Yeah. But that's the way it is now in the code.
That's the way it's now.
That's not this.
Correct.
The charge is one thing. I have no problem with the charge. I have a problem when we had the previous experience and they were investigating and we paid a fortune for nothing.
Right. Well, that's what this, this ordinance.
And by the way, I was investigated and we paid zero. I was investigated, we paid zero.
Right. That's what it should be.
I didn't hire an attorney. So it's my choice to get an attorney or not.
Under the law, investigations are covered.
Well, I think that we agree to disagree on that.
Yeah.
I think that there's never been a case that demonstrates that. I think that is still out there for determination. I think that obviously there could be a public purpose in covering investigations. You guys made that determination in the previous experience, but I don't think anybody can put to a case where they can show that an investigation would be covered underneath the law.
But Chad, to clarify for Ed, the way the code is written now, not what we have in front of us, if something happens and if somebody wants to pay for it, one of us or a previous whoever would have to come to council and ask for it.
No.
And we will determine yes or no, unless it's an ethical charge.
That's correct.
Okay? That's the way it is in the code right now. With the way this is
Unless
written.
it's what? Unless what was the?
Unless it's an ethical charge, but you have to be charged, not investigated, a charge from
Okay.
ethical, then that's the code. What this is doing is allowing, cover everything, witnesses, investigations, everything, but they could go to the manager. Don't have to come in the political realm of us. And then the manager can decide on yes or no, and then there's an appeal process, because if she says no, then they can come and appeal to us, which is the way it is in the code right now, if it's under ethical. So I think, and what my motion is, I haven't had a second yet, is that we just leave it the way it was, and if anybody has an issue, and we know when, I mean, we know each other, we know what kind of situation is, and you want to get paid up front, ask for it. And I'm fine with that.
It's hard for me to decide on this one, but I think the compelling argument that Ignacio brings up is, I was very uncomfortable with the case with the former mayor. And I am in the market. I mean, I live, and to me, those are very high fees. And, unfortunately, you all did not agree with me. And so.
No, it's a point of order. I thought they were.
Yeah, you're right.
ridiculously high fees, but I didn't feel we had the right to prevent her from collecting.
Because she had already incurred it. Yeah, I know, I oversimplify, but that was a very uncomfortable thing. You call it political, or we're a little community. We know that there's 10, 20 do-nothing people in this community that all they do is trying to trip us. We don't need to go into it. And so I want to have some defense that takes it out of the political. And it seems to me, other than the reasonableness that this, but I hate to defer it again because I'm so damn confused. Well,
that's kind of where I frankly came up, because I know how much work you've done on it, and I don't want to keep deferring it, but I feel like we're going around and around.
The only way to deal with the reasonableness, aside from what's already written in, is to, if there's no meeting of the minds, designate a third party to come up with. Usually you go to a hearing in front of a judge, and the judge will determine what a reasonable amount is and how many hours are reasonable. But if it doesn't reach that level in court, then you need to go outside of court to do that.
Chad, how many other people other municipalities do this, where they have the manager that makes the decisions and go this far into officials?
A lot of those ethics ordinances were put into place during that time period. There's several. But you go across the state, there's a lot of these ordinances, but I can't speak if it's the manager actually did it or not. But the one thing I would say about the third person deciding, if the manager were to decide that it's not reasonable, there's an appeal to the council, and you guys could decide. So, I mean, that's built in.
It is now.
So that's what happened before. Yeah. Although, I think Ignacio and I talked about it's not clear on the appeal and the current provisions, but clearly the manager.
Actually, what you just said, the arbiter can be, the appeal could be the council.
Right.
As to the rate.
Yeah, the language that I wanted to include, if you can help me, is tracking Ed's overall policy of getting quotes or getting a sense of the market. And I know it's difficult, but it gives you another window other than the bar association setting the price. It's like the,
I mean, look, you can go.
You got to give us some sort of solution.
You can do that. You can do that. I think where Ignacio is maybe struggling, he didn't say it, but hiring a lawyer is sometimes a very personal decision based upon expertise and everything else. There is nothing wrong with going and saying, prior to you seeking us to reimburse you up front, you need to provide us with 3 proposals. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. You may not get 3, but if you want to do that, that's fine.
Councilmember McCormick?
I'm sorry, I just was wondering where, you made a motion?
I made a motion to
kill this.
To kill this and go back just the way that it was.
To the way it was.
Yes.
And where is that motion?
It's still
It's nobody
I'll
seconded.
second it, just to have a discussion.
All right, we have a second.
We should, technically, somebody sort of just to have the discussion on it, we should have seconded it, so, for discussion purposes. If you have any thoughts, what are the thoughts? Come on, let's go, folks.
My thought was to put that language in.
I'm inclined to agree with Brett. I feel like it comes to us either way. It came to us before. I mean, that situation, look at how it went.
Yeah.
The problem with the previous experience and with potential future experience is the realm of the political. By creating an ordinance, you take it out of that and you create a
Except with this whole like appeal process and the price, I think you're just like, I agree with you and I was there with you in the beginning, but I feel like these discussions now just push the conversation down the way a little bit, and it's the same thing in the end. If you get down to, it becomes political of I'm willing to pay that, but I'm not willing to pay this.
Well, here's the thing. Let's say, as written, someone comes with an attorney with X rate, and the manager, with the assistance of the attorney, believes that rate is not appropriate, and the person appeals to the council, and the council says no. The next step is for that person to sue the village and to get a court to determine what the reasonable rate is. Am I wrong on that, Chad?
Well, I think that there could be an avenue there. I guess that's a possibility. I don't really foresee
Right.
it occurring, but
The only way around that would be,
there would be no reason to sue the village because they would probably negotiate the rate down, which is reasonable. It's going to save them money
Right.
to do that. than sue
Right.
There's no difference between the two ordinances anyways, because we'd be in the same position with vice versa.
No, Michael? Yeah. There's another problem. You say that according to case law, the village has to pay for investigations. Chad says, or witnesses,
no, witnesses.
That was just your
don't-
idea.
That's my idea.
Okay. Chad said he doesn't know of any kind of case law so we already have a difference, even in the ordinance, are we responsible or not responsible at this point in time? So basically, if you leave it the way it is now, and something happens, maybe by that time, you and Chad will agree that it either, because there is case law, there's not case law, why we have to do it, and go from there. But right now, you even have a disagreement on that, so I don't think we can even agree to that at this point in time.
Well,
and the witness is just you're doing.
Right.
Okay.
The problem with continuing with the current method is, again, it stays in the realm of the political. Not just this council, but any future council. It does not become a process of law. It becomes a process of politics. And that is where you can get into trouble, in my opinion.
Okay.
So it seems to me the only real, the problem is the rate. And unfortunately, I just can't think of any specific way to get around that, aside maybe having some sort of arbitration provision or something of the sort, where if a party wants to be reimbursed or wants to have the cost paid up front by the village, they agree to, number one, there'll be an agreement as to what a reasonable rate is, and if there is no agreement, then in order to be qualified for reimbursal, they agree to go to an arbiter of some sort.
But we haven't agreed on the investigation because there's a difference, and the witness we haven't necessarily, we haven't voted on to do
No,
it.
but I mean, I think that as far as the investigation, I believe that you guys could decide to put that in here. I'm just saying that I don't think that
I'm
there's a
saying, what
legal
are we
obligation.
legally bound to do?
What
Not
you're legally bound to do?
No.
You're not legally bound to pay attorney's fees up front for anything.
The best thing about this thing, having a lousy ordinance, knowing that, hey, we might not get paid, we're going to be really good. We're not going to have a problem. Except for me. Everybody else.
And this is I mean, this ordinance kind of came out of one incident that has happened in 27 years. I mean, this is not like a common thing that's happening all the time. That's why I just think that spending all this time on an effort into making the code even more complex, and I still have an issue with the manager making the decision because the manager is an employee of us. So if something happened to me and I go to the manager, either she's going to be yes or no. I don't know. I mean, it's something that is kind of an awkward. Right. It's an awkward thing, and it's still political. It's still in the political realm. So I don't know. I just think we're the council, we make these decisions, and you have an issue, you come and ask us, you know?
Take it home for my kids.
No, you have to throw it away.
Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
You didn't saw a letter that they sent?
First of all, Chad, do you agree with what he's saying, that currently the way it exists without the ordinance, it would become a political process as opposed to a legal process, and that this ordinance, if we were to agree on some ordinance, would take it out of the political realm?
I think to the extent that the manager approves the request, then, yeah, I mean, that matter wouldn't come before this council for a vote.
Without this, does it come before the manager first?
Without this, the only matter that the manager has jurisdiction to approve in such circumstances would be ethics charges. If there were just general, crimes that you've been charged with.
Has to come to us.
It would have to come to you if you're seeking reimbursement at the outset of the proceeding.
Or civil suits, too.
Yes, but civil suits generally are covered by our insurance.
Right, that's insurance.
But,
what are you thinking about
yes, it's true.
Okay, so then my next question, I know you've spent a lot of time on this. I know what your intent was. You've listened to us talk about it, I think, 3 times now.
4.
And is it still your opinion that we would be better off by trying to come to consensus on this? And what would end up being the ultimate ordinance, given what you've heard? Or should we just not have the ordinance at all? What is your opinion?
Is for the ordinance, just to have clarity and to take it as much out of the political realm as possible, and to cover all the bases. And in the future, should anyone ask what is the policy, procedure, and rules for the Village of Key Biscayne in any of these situations, look at the ordinance. It's all there. That's my opinion.
Okay.
But with all of the modifications that people are asking for?
Well, the only real modification is some sort of cap on the rate. Aside from that, it's just Brett's motion to just kill it altogether.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
All
So
right.
that's what's on the floor, Michael. You call the question?
Yeah, let's call the motion to kill it.
I'm sorry, who seconded that motion?
I did for
Thank you.
discussion purposes, but it's out there.
I'll do a
so-
roll call. Councilmember Sigorola?
No.
Mayor Davy?
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo?
And no.
Councilmember London?
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Petros?
No.
Sorry,
Motion
no,
carries,
sir.
doesn't carry?
Carries.
So killed.
4-3, yes.
So everybody be good.
Next item,
Ready, group? Can we group them
yes, that would be, I'm sorry, it's 9:05, the village manager's report.
Okay.
Madam Manager, ongoing project update.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we have an expanding ongoing project update on tab 11. I'm going to go in reverse order, if I may. So when the council awarded the paddle contract, which is a paddleboard sharing program, we were asked to come back and provide a report. So the folks from Paddle are here, so we'd like to invite you up and share with the council how your program is working out.
Hi, my name is Andres Abello, one of the partners of Paddle. I live in 650 Ocean Drive, apartment 3B, and I just wanted to quickly show you just a few stats and a quick presentation on the current pilot program that we're extremely thankful that you guys were believed in us to put this together and execute.
Is this different than what we have already?
This is what we
This
have
is
right
their
now, and plus what we're gonna do in the future.
This is their update of what's been happening.
Yes. 6 months.
They are the guys.
So in 2019, we officially finished our phase 1 of development, which was the minimum viable product, which was launched here in Key Biscayne. It's a purpose-built station for Key Biscayne. It was developed to gauge market acceptance, as well as continue to improve based on the user feedback that we saw from the residents here. In June, we finally got the pilot approved. It was granted in council, and we were able to install in August. We had a couple delays due to hacking of the systems and whatnot, but of the village systems where the permit office was shut down. We had a little bit of delay in getting installed there. Not of ours. I want to clarify that. So going in, we completed the winter season. We're at the tail end of it now. We have 23 weeks. We've had 46 key operating days on the weekend. We look at this on a week-by-week basis where we have an average of 2 operating days on a weekend, weather permitting. The winter is very susceptible to weather. So while these stats may not look as high as expected, it is very well within the range that we were expecting. Within the key operating days, we're averaging 4.3 rentals per each of those days and averaging 8.7 rentals per week. That number does not take into consideration multiple closures that we've had of the beach, as well as closures due to high winds. When miles are exceeding from the east and we go and see the physical location and deem the area it's not safe for operation, we'll actually shut the station down so you cannot no longer rent. We've had multiple of these scenarios as expected. Again, it's the winter season, but still with those situations, we've been able to assume a 39% repeat monthly rental rate on the guests that come through it. We've driven visibility to the beach park. There's been a lot more activity going on through there. We've had a couple partner events with Philibag, another organization here, in terms of cleanups, in terms of trying to get people on boards and do good for the community. Just to quickly go through this, just because I know I've been here for a while. But in short, we've developed a rental management system on the back end, along with live monitoring, where we're able to track GPS points exactly where each of the boards are at any given time. We constantly know where everybody is, and we're really changing the way safety is viewed in the sport. In terms of ticket reporting, we're able to see the total number of tickets that come through. We've had 47 support cases raised. The majority of them is people either asking how to unlock or how to lock the system and basically end rental systems. Going into safety through our technology and customer support, we're constantly monitoring activity, providing top safety measures in the industry. All of our equipment comes with a life jacket, leash, a whistle. It's always made available as part of the rental, and we also have CTO on the back end should anybody be offshore. Now, we haven't had an issue to date, happily, and we constantly monitor to make sure that that's not the case. Going forward, we're doing multiple software upgrades. We have more reliable GPS units, which have already been implemented or are now on the boards themselves. We have new microcontrollers, which will be installed in March 2020, which will improve the locking and unlocking speed of the units, improving the user experience. And then we also have in-app improvements for simplifying the end rental and start rental process. We're also going to be launching memberships, and we're aiming at approximately a $20 monthly rental program. Right now, we've decreased our initial pricing from $20 per rental down to $15, making it more accessible for repeat users to be able to go and really experience paddleboarding. And with this monthly rental program, we'll give unlimited 2-hour rentals for anybody that wants to pay just a monthly fee versus paying per rental. And finally, it's the new equipment. Under our agreement, we wanted to replace a board at least every 3 years, but we're rapidly changing and rapidly expanding. To really keep up with what our users want, we came out with a lighter board. We currently have the prototype out on the station. It's 30% lighter than the previous board that we had. And we're also developing a hybrid stand-up paddleboard kayak. So it gives the user ability to really sit down if they're tired and more comfort while they're out in the water. And that is it, everybody.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks. Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions for them? We're missing both the mayor and...
No, I just think it's great, local guys starting good things. I hope it's going well for you.
Thanks, guys.
We want you to do
We're
good.
definitely learning a lot, and we're constantly improving, and that's what this pilot is all about.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Awesome.
I love these things that start on the key by people from the key.
The next report we have is an update on 530 Crandon, so I can invite Todd up to give some, get into the details, but high level, we were asked to take the 4 proposals that we received for the development of 530 Crandon Park and go back to the proposers and seek value engineered proposals. Of the 4 vendors that were competing for the project, 1 is no longer qualified, not in the marketplace anymore. 2 did not provide a response. And then the recommended bidder from the last time provided a value engineered proposal that basically had the same dollar amounts and is slightly more detail. So we've worked with the engineer and the contractor to try to answer some of the questions that we had. And instead of bringing forth an ordinance and advertising a notice, I thought it would be a good opportunity to take a pause, check in with the council, and get a sense of how we want to move forward. So I can either take questions from there, or if we want to get into a little bit more detail, Todd can also field some questions.
The bottom line is that nothing happened. Same amount of money, same profile. You've heard my opinion, and I think it is not a wise use of funds. $1.2 million is a lot of money. We bought some brand-new property that we're going to turn into parks to improve nature. It's a perfectly beautiful park. If we do a few little benches, I've been sending all of you and the administration pictures of benches I've seen in other cities. It's a passive, also begging the administration to remove those two ugly tables and put something nice, and people are beginning to really use it, because the first thing is people say they don't, again, we go back, Madam Manager, we still don't have signs. It's been a year since I said, so people don't even know it's their park. So they're, all of a sudden the fence went down and they're still kind of hesitant. But it's a beautiful place, and I think spending $1.2 million in improving that thing, it just doesn't register with me and the people that I converse with and I think I represent.
I can tell you there are people who were on this council, there are people in this community who would like to see something done there. I understand my concern, Ed, to you is about the design build that we wanted to do. What are your thoughts on this? Because this doesn't sound like this moved the needle at all. So,
yeah, I mean, basically, this wasn't done as a design build.
Right, I know, I understand what happened, and here we are.
I don't know at this point in time, do you want to basically put something else out for design build, have people come back and say, what are your ideas? Yeah. This is what we have. Give us your ideas and proposal and price to do it. Or do you want to go ahead with this and say, hey, we're just sick and tired and we'll just spend the money? I mean, that's what it really comes down to.
Well, what do you think? You're the builder up here, so,
When it comes to, I know that, and the experience is the dog park. When we write our kind of specs, we get our kind of prices.
Right.
And that's what happened.
No, but that's why I like the idea that you brought us.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's what I would do. But I mean, at this point in time, we've got nowhere with that. So the only other alternative is either go back and say, fine, we're going to do design build now.
Is that a motion?
Let them come back with that. If we don't get anything with that, we can always come back to this.
I'll move it. I'll move that.
Councilmember Petros, we got a motion on the floor to go back to design build. Councilmember Petros.
If we go back to design build.
No, go back. We're never there.
No, if we do a reset again, because we like to reset on this property, and we do a different process. Mm-hmm. First of all, how long do you think the time would take? What's the delay? And how much money would we save?
Well, you'll never know until you get the bids and the designs. So if that, I'd just be looking at my crystal ball and say, let's see, $432,000 we're going to save.
You're very experienced.
Sweetie, you don't know, because what's going to happen is that people come up with different concepts. That's the whole thing, but a design build.
Yeah, but design build, you set the price up front too.
At this point in time, we said basically we want to have seating areas or whatever the activities that we want to have on this particular property. Now you come up with a concept and design for that and tell us what it's going to cost. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but there's going to be there's a fee in that extra design that we're gonna pay for, right? So, and how much we paid already on designing this project is scary.
Guy's going to come in with a bid and say, hey, I can do this, this, and this, without a detailed description, just a sketch, and say, fine, and here's what I'm going to do. He's not going to spend 100 hours designing the thing with a price and say, we can do this. And we say, hey, that looks good, and then we sit down with them and try and work it out. I mean, that's what I would do. I mean, but it's up
you
to
wouldn't.
guys.
You would. There are significant enough savings potential.
You know what?
I'm not asking for
potentially, yes. But do I know what the exact number is going to be? No, I don't.
I'm not asking for you.
But I think, of course, there are.
Councilmember Laredo, do you want to say something?
No, I please don't misunderstand me. I'm putting words in your mouth, but just because, we made expenditures, I mean, when it's $1.2 million is an awful lot of money for me, and as it is for you. Sure. And I'm sure that there were expenditures, and I know the people behind this. There is no person in the world that I think higher than Dr. Kelly, but I really feel it's a wonderful park as it is. We got other priorities. A little bit of improvement, and we can revisit this down the road. It's not an eyesore. It's beautiful with a few things, and we can do other projects. We have a bunch of stuff to do.
I guess I go back to, it is kind of an eyesore. I understand you want to fix it up a little bit, but it's our civic center.
I want to do it.
I want to do a project there. I don't want to sit and say, okay, we're gonna take some things.
Buy some benches.
Yeah, let's do this project. Let's just get it going. Let's move along.
But why don't we sit with because I asked Todd if he can send me the construction documents. I want to go through it because I have the pricing now. I want to go through the construction documents. But, we can, and I don't think we've gone through this exercise yet. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but, we can sit down with the designers because, look, the benches, whatever it was, $8,000 per bench or something, and we can sit with them and say, like, all right, let's look at this. What can we do here? The other thing that popped out of, just screamed at me was that the concrete sidewalk is more expensive than the paver sidewalk by 4 times more expensive. I don't even know how that's even possible, but since there's a special red tint that you have to get from, somewhere in the Himalayas or something, it costs that much money, right? So,
we both you and I look at it and say, hey, that's when I said, put this back out, let them come up with value engineer, because this is crazy.
But my understanding is that they don't want a value engineer. We may have to go back.
They have no competition. Why should they do anything? No one else is bidding.
But if we cancel the bid that we did, go back to our designers and say, look, we want to do all of this, but we got to do it in this price. And we even know already some of the ideas of these estimates. Red concrete is not something that we need to have. Maybe we look at something else. I don't know what it is, but we can sit with the design team, make those adjustments, and rebid it out and get a good, efficient price, and we send it out. The only thing, if we go back to design build, we're paying for that. They're going to hire a designer. They're not going to sketch it on a pad, right?
How much is a designer for a park like that?
Well,
how much would you pay?
Preliminary design.
Just like I want to ask. I mean, I don't want to put it on a spot. Prices.
Concept.
But yeah, I mean, maybe 15,000 or something. So 20,000. But the thing is,
Petros has a point. So let's try and open the floor.
Just to refresh my memory, we started at 1.8 and we got down to 1.2 because we eliminated, I know the pump track, but what else did we eliminate?
Pergola, some benches.
Okay.
Some site furnishings.
The $175,000 $127,000 pergola, which again, when you look at it, it's just 4 posts of wood.
If you want to speak with the company, they're present.
No, I'm not voting for this.
The company,
I'm voting that we go back and bring it
Brett,
back.
Brett, we have the company here right now, so maybe we could ask them some questions on some of this so that we understand what this pricing is, and maybe some of these things are, like the red matches our entire village. I don't know how we'd get away.
It does match
not
the whole, yeah.
using the red along that area of Crandon, because that's literally what we have everywhere else.
Well, I don't want to get into a back and forth with the contractor here. I think this has a lot to do with the specifications that we may have in our drawings, and we got to go back and see what we have in there. Yeah.
Same thing with the dog.
What'd you say?
Yeah, can you sit down with
I said the same thing we did with the dog, where the design builder who did City of Miami, who was less than half price, decided not to bid on us when he saw our specifications. Didn't even bother.
Well, I'll tell you, we did a park in Doral. We did a private public partnership in Doral. We did a park that was 30,000 square feet. This is a park of 25,000 square feet.
Across from City Hall?
No, this is at their police substation off of 97th. And we did it, the grand opening was 1 year ago. We ended up paying $300,000 for the park. There was a little bit of crossover of some construction that they were already doing. So let's say $450,000 of that park for 30,000 square feet. Now, it's not the nicest, because there was a lot of value engineering we did because it was a private public. The private wasn't willing to spend $800,000. They had a budget. So we went through and took this out, took that. It didn't turn out as good as the original design was, but we had to kind of bring it down a little bit. But that's the thing. I'm looking at that at 1.8 million, and even if it's 500,000, well, 1.2 is when you're taking out all the stuff, but it's not.
He hasn't budgeted the price on anything. He's just budgeting the price on what we took off.
Why should he?
Well, exactly.
I think I like.
So I would like to go back with the designers. I can meet with the construction team if you want, but I think that if they got a drawing,
let's do it. Yeah, I don't want to sit up here all night going back and forth with the designers. I don't think that's.
Please do that for us.
Okay, next.
Good. Move on. Thank you.
What are we doing? What is our?
A motion to.
Not promise you a $500,000 park.
I'll make a motion so it's
I just want to bring it down a little bit.
A motion to formally appoint.
Just do it.
To come back to us.
He's formally appointed.
Vice Mayor is appointed to take care of it.
Just, the mayor, the reason I'm getting it on is because we just talked about legal thing.
Fair enough.
I just want to.
You don't want to get.
Yeah, we want to give him please, Madam Manager, the full authorization, because he knows what they'll come up with.
Bless you, my son.
Go. Thank you, Todd. Well
Okay.
done.
Thank you. So the next report is an update on septic. So as at the time of the agenda printing, we hadn't made much progress since the previous meeting due to the short period of time, but you got an update today on your, on the dais when you came in. 2 more homes have complied, so we're now at 152 homes that are remaining to comply with the conversion to septic. Great, thank you.
Well,
And
this says
then-
152 here. There's 150, this says there is now 152, so 150 now?
So it was 154 in the printed agenda, and then the handout was 152.
No, this is my agenda that I got. This is the agenda I received. This is the printed. It says 152. Anyway, if that's where we are, that's where we are. It's 150 to 152. Can we agree on that? Let's move forward. Okay.
Jake, can you
No,
confirm
no, no,
154
no.
to 152?
It's fine. 2 more.
2 more.
Okay. Perfect.
So then the final update is on the federal shoreline protection feasibility study.
Can I ask one question about the septic?
Sure.
The beach club.
Yes.
What is going on with the beach club and the septic
Yes, thank you. So
conversion?
the Beach Club is one of the commercial properties that is still on septic. We've met with the folks from the Beach Club. The challenge they're having is that their distance from where their infrastructure is to connect to the city's infrastructure is quite far, and it's a very costly project for them. So, Jake, if you want to join us here, what we are doing is trying to work out a deal with them if we can front the money, if we can help them to comply, but right now, we're looking at about 150,000, I think, would be the cost to the Beach Club to comply. They still are on septic, and we're trying to help find ways for them to come into compliance.
Yeah, correct. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we met with Durham last Monday, and this issue came up. One of the things that we got to do, currently, the Beach Club is not fronted by sewer because we have the village property buffering the sewer. So we have to do about 50 foot of sewer extension, put a manhole. The village has to pay for that. That's our cost. And at that time, the Beach Club would be legally considered as fronted by sewer. So at that time, they have to connect. Now, they got to do pump station and run a force main. That's going to run them anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000. And I spoke with one of the board members, the Beach Club, Dwight Hewitt. And I believe he's the upcoming president. And he did mention that they have no money anywhere near $150,000. So there may be some cost sharing that we can discuss, or however some deals that the village may or may not do with the Beach Club. But that's to be discussed. One other option that we considered was to have Beach Club lift their sewer and connect to our beach park. But Durham cautioned us against it because we just have wastewater coming out of the beach park, but Beach Club has cooking facilities, and there's a grease issue that eventually may cause problems for us. They did not want it. They also, even if there was no grease issue, they wouldn't still approve it because they don't like to have 2 connections in one lateral. They wouldn't want one lateral, another one upstream of the existing one, because in the event that, let's say, village failed to maintain one lateral and Beach Club is connected to us, so then theirs would fail too. So that's where we are.
So Durham would not approve the connection to connect it to our pipes that are at the beach park?
It is very likely they will not approve, and even if there was like some, pressure to do it, they cautioned us against it.
And did I understand you correctly, I'm sorry, one more, that you said that the village actually needs to do some work before they are considered out of compliance because they don't even have the ability to connect?
Correct. We have to give a utility easement to Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer Department and run about 50 foot of sewer extension and put a manhole.
And how quickly will that be happening?
We already started the process with Water and Sewer Department, and I'm going to be asking for a proposal from engineering firms to get it done. But that's a very quick process. We could do a lot faster than Beach Club can get their action together.
3 months? Give me an approximation.
Probably less, but yeah.
Okay.
You said that they don't like us to do it. Can they stop
us from doing one lateral with two customers, so to speak?
They can absolutely stop us.
Sorry?
Yes, they can. They are the regulating authority.
Yeah, no, but, okay, so if you have a duplex, if you have a house, two homes, is there anything where it says that you have to have a separate lateral for each property?
If you, currently, the current code reads, yes, you have to have two separate laterals. You cannot connect one.
Okay. So the only, unless it's common ownership?
Probably, I believe so.
So the question becomes ownership, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the thing would be, we're an easement, follow me along with them going, Chad. In other words, the fact if there was an easement, we'll say from their place to our place to dump the sewer in our property, would that then qualify?
I know.
Okay, so, and how much would they save by doing that?
It's, the cost
still need
savings
a
are
lift
not
station?
substantial. You still have to put a lift station. You save some money on Force Main. Probably, if it was 150, but 20%.
Oh, that's all? Never mind.
It's not even
No,
worth
no, it's not a big deal, no, never mind. Okay. I thought possibly.
And the long-term headache
I didn't
is-
realize they'd still need the lift station.
They do, because
whatever
they
else.
lay very
Okay,
low.
Fine. So the problem then is they don't have the money to do it.
They don't.
So, and is it?
Guys, we're on a subject, I mean,
So it's our
council
best.
member asked
Well,
a question.
Real quick, so it's our best interest to do it. If they don't do it, we can put them out of business. I don't think anybody here wants to put them out of business, right? I mean, that's what we could do, fine them or put them out of business, or say they can't use the toilets or their kitchen, correct?
Well, I wouldn't want to see that.
Well, nobody wants to see that. So the question is, what can we do to work together so that they can do it and we can be satisfied?
Right,
It
well,
becomes a
let's-
question of money, it's a question of us advancing the money and then charging them interest on the money to collect the money to get it done. Have you discussed that with them?
Well, that's a question this body can answer, not me.
Well, I mean, is that something they'd be interested in?
Well,
I believe so.
that's what we have to, my recommendation would be, let's have a discussion where we let them know we're having a discussion about this
Fine.
and move forward. I don't think this
Good.
is something we
Okay,
should be
good
talking
enough.
about here
Goodbye.
without their input.
Sorry.
Put a time certain on that, by the next meeting have terms for approval?
Have terms
We
for
asked-
approval?
Should
Yeah.
we ask the manager to work on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
fine.
get with them and see what we can work out, and we'll bring something back at the next
Good.
meeting.
Okay. Standard rate's 12%.
Perfect.
And Mayor, you're
12%?
correct, it is 152 on the septic. So, you're correct, it is 152 on the septic.
Yeah, well, okay, I just. mine said
And then, actually, Jake, if you'd stay with us here, so with regard to the feasibility study for federal shoreline protection, so as of the last report, we were waiting on some data. We have worked with the law firm, and we've been able to sign off on any confidentiality that they wanted. So we have an understanding from the Army Corps. We'll get the data this week. Councilmember Petros and I spoke this morning. There was an exchange between the councilmember and the project manager from the Army Corps of Engineers. I did reach out to Spencer today, and we were kind of playing phone tag. I don't know if you were able to get a hold of him.
Yeah, Spencer mentioned he talked to Laurel, and Laurel's talking to their attorneys to see if they can release the data to us and our consultant.
Good.
And then with regard to the timeline, we did report that we are 8 weeks behind schedule. So that is based on the expectation that the high-level cost and the benefit cost ratio would be delivered by January 6th. Due to the engineers not having this data, that is what they're telling us has made them be delayed in delivering. So we're 8 weeks past due. I would suggest that by the next meeting, we've asked that our consultants that we're investing in participate with us and come to these meetings. So hopefully at the next meeting, they can be here and we can go into a deeper dive on what the next steps would be.
I would like to add, if I could, that the Army Corps has been very responsive. I think we have a really good team working on this. There's a possibility that we may get incorporated into the major feasibility study, but nothing's for certain ever. And really the things that we need to get are a high-level cost-benefit ratio analysis from our consultants. And secondly, I think we need to be studying the cost of putting girders or something offshore so that if we get groins, excuse me, if we get
I don't know what you mean by girders, but I don't think that's a good idea.
if we get approval for sand, that we're
No, I agree.
showing that we can try to retain
We can
it.
start talking about that stuff, absolutely. I agree.
So thank you.
All right. So we're back
Thank
to,
you.
FY 2020 first quarter financial report.
So quarter one ended December 31st. There are some lags, but there are at least three things I wanted to point out. In the general fund, on the revenue side, the franchise fees, the new agreement will take effect in May of this year. So our revenue is expected to be significantly higher. And also due to the renegotiation of the agreement, we are getting monthly payments as opposed to a lump sum, which improves our ability to manage our cash flows. In the Stormwater Fund, I will also point out on the expenditure side, the operating expenditures, and I appreciate the council's investment. There was an increased budget allocation in the stormwater maintenance, and you'll see higher expenditures as well, which is representative of us investing more in the maintenance. The system as it is now is optimized based on its current capabilities. The third point I'll make is in our other enterprise fund in solid waste. The next billing for this year is going out next year. We had spoken last year about enforcing the code, which includes penalties, past due balances, and interest. The billing that will go out, in addition to what is budgeted fund, that billing that will go out, so our collection rate will depend, will bring an additional $775,000 to the fund. And we can take any questions.
Have you seen an improvement on your collection rates?
We haven't sent out the letter yet, so it'll go out next week, the next
But were you
billing.
able to capture any from the year before, given that historically we found out we had a very poor collection rate?
Since we discovered this and the email that I sent out, it's only an annual billing, so we would only see it in annual cycles. So we can report back when we send out the billing what kind of collection rate we're seeing.
I guess I would ask, though, just a little bit further, which is, if we know people haven't paid, have we gone and asked them to pay and make themselves current? Or are we just writing that off if they're in arrears?
We're doing that in this bill that's going out next week.
All right.
A quick, are you through?
next
Yes.
phones.
Just a question, can you answer me now, or if not, when are we going to have the signs on the parks?
Todd,
I mean,
when are we going to have the signs on the parks?
You want the bronze plaques on
I never said what I wanted, I just,
When did we, a question from Councilman McCormick. When did we vote on that? Or what did we tell you to do?
What did we ask?
I don't know that.
I
know it's been discussed.
I remember
we
you
lost
talking.
because it's been a year. Listen, I'm sorry.
I remember you asking for
Remember when we had the
Yes.
problem with the state legislature and naming the park?
Yes.
And we finally did that, and we said, why don't we have nice little things, and this is park so-and-so, it belongs to you. Taxpayers' money at work. That was a year ago. So when can we have wooden, bronze, whatever?
So I feel like, that, and I'm not saying I don't think it's a good idea or that you didn't say it. I specifically remember you talking about it. My question is, I feel like a lot of times where, and I know you have this frustration because I've heard you, where we talk about things and then we think something's going to happen, it doesn't happen. And what I've come to learn is that in this administration, they need to have budget authority. Am I using the words? Am I putting them back right? And council authority. And so things that don't happen because we didn't officially give the direction, we didn't budget the funds, we didn't vote on it. And I feel like it's possible that might be where we are on these signs. Is that true?
Yes.
So
Well, let me tell you
nothing's
something.
happening because you feel like we didn't actually tell you.
No, we've been talking about it. We have been
We haven't.
talking.
And she's been bringing it up to my attention very frequently.
Thank
So
you.
this is on
But,
me.
you know, this is going to end like it started. I'm sorry, I'm going to blow my top. Okay. I'm an elected official. I agree with you, all of that stuff, but it is in our interest, so our taxpayers know they're taxpayers at work. I brought this up, maybe I should have forced the floor. And I have been waiting 1 year. I focus on in specific things, like I used this earlier today, our success with the Oasis, because we got it done. We have not been able to get a darn, now it's not even important anymore to me whether you put that sign or not. It's just, it's a my management style. Forgive me, I'm sorry. I just can't believe it.
Sir.
I just can't believe it.
If you give me 60 days, I'll get your signs done.
But I mean, it's been a year.
What kind of signs are you going to put up?
Consistent with the
I'm not
signage
sure.
that we have on the hill.
Forget it,
Existing
I'm out of
signage.
control.
Which is be
I don't
the
have any
coral
patience.
rock and the bronze black.
You go to the city of Miami, for crying out loud, they have wooden ones that are beautiful.
Thank you.
Next item, bond issuance process pursuant to asset protection.
Hey, Ed, can I ask you something?
Okay, so I know it's getting late, but basically we've started moving based on the discussion that the council had at the last meeting. We have identified some categories of projects, including resilience, parks and open space, roadway improvements, transit, transportation. We've met with some other communities to go through their lessons learned, what their experiences have been with successful bonds and with unsuccessful bond issuances. I think tonight some of the guidance that we're seeking is making sure that the council is fully in support of what we're doing. I think we heard tonight from many residents who are in support of this. I think that we need to decide if we're going to do this, that we commit to the resources to be able to do this, define how we're going to do this, and specifically what projects. The projects that we know of, that we've been talking about, we have reasonably good cost estimates. If there is a will to go beyond those projects that are identified either in the CIP or projects that we've talked about, we would need to develop those cost estimates. So basically what we need to know from the council, 100% green light, do we have full support, and what projects do we want to include in this?
Do you have to have specific projects, and is that what the other communities did? When Miami Beach went out for their bond, did they know exactly what they were spending their $400 million on when they did that?
So were you, actually Benjamin was with Miami Beach, so I've met, yeah.
Yeah, to speak to Councilmember Petros' item, I was at Miami Beach when they went through the GEO bond process. If you talk with them, you talk with Doral, and I think
Cutler Bay was the
Cutler Bay is
lessons
the other one.
learned.
The lessons learned, they all advise having those projects listed before you do this process, so the community knows exactly where these dollars are going to be expended.
And what was Miami Beach's list? Do you remember?
So they actually divided in 3 different tranches. There was one focusing on just parks, one for public safety improvements, and the third
Neighborhoods and infrastructure,
was
I think?
infrastructure. So instead of asking for a big $500 million ask, they split it into smaller tranches and then actually had on their website a detailed list of the projects.
Okay.
Councilmember London.
I'd like to make a motion if it's necessary, or if not, just to put it into action. I would suggest or move that we put out an RFP, QC, whatever is necessary, in order to get proposals from investment bankers who we would retain to guide us through this process. This is a big process. It's really important to have the right people working for us to do this and to be guided, whether we have all the projects, what detail the projects we need to do, what is our, what's the capacity, what are the good terms, what kind of maturities are we looking at, how do we want to step this up? Are there going to be ladder bonds? What are we going to do? It's just not say, okay, fine, we're going to get $100 million of the bonds. We might want to say we want this. What will be the positive or negative arbitrage once we get the bonds before we spend the money? Because that's an expense we might incur and an income we might gain. Right now, because interest rates are very low, obviously there's a good chance of a positive arbitrage. At least we won't be any negative arbitrage, so we'll be actually making money on the money we're borrowing until we use it. So it doesn't cost you anything because rates now are so dramatically low. So, and also the terms.
Let me have the attorney address that.
Pretty sure, I can get an opinion from bond counsel, but you can't arbitrage tax exempt financing.
Well, we're not going to do it on purpose. Just might work out that way.
But back to your ordinance. Ed's going to need that.
Why do you ask a lawyer for this thing? You never get anything done.
And then Councilmember McCormick, then Councilmember Segurola.
It's okay.
Okay, Councilmember Segurola.
I know what you're supposed to do and not supposed to.
The manager yesterday sent out an email to us with presentations for Doral and Cutler Bay, showing all the work that they performed before asking the taxpayers to support a bond. I can't think of one reason why our taxpayers deserve anything less. I know I'm going to be the odd man out once again, but Madam Manager, to answer your question, no, you do not have 100% support. You're going to have to do it without my support. This is, once again, putting the cart before the horse. Those other cities created a master plan, identified specific projects, came up with cost estimates for those projects, and only after all of that did they go forward to the taxpayers and ask for a bond. I think it is irresponsible and lazy for us to do the opposite, to ask for $150 million or more without having any idea whatsoever we're going to spend it on the promise, gee, trust us, but not just trust us, trust future unknown councils with $150 million without really having any concrete idea what we're going to be spending it on. I cannot support this in any way. So for the record, I'm out.
Okay, Council Vice Mayor?
I mean, I wouldn't support anything either if we don't know what we're going to be using the money for. So I don't think that that's what we're proposing. I mean, I would also propose that, we put together what it is that what type of projects we're going to be using the money for. We have many master plans, right? We have a stormwater master plan. We got underground utility master plan. We got Crandon Boulevard safety, pedestrian safety master. And we got all these master plans sitting around. The idea is that our staff should go ahead and start identifying what are those projects that we would do under a bond like this, and put that all together and find out how much it is. We don't even know how much we're talking about. We could be talking about 30 million, or we could be talking about 200 million. We don't know. We're just throwing numbers out there, right? So we don't even know if there would even need to be a charter amendment to the debt cap. So I think that's one of the places that we really need to start at. And I would never, and I'm not going to speak for anybody up here, but I would assume that all of us would never think about going to the taxpayers and saying, hey, give us $100 million, but we'll figure out in 20 years what we'll do with the money. I don't think any of us are supporting that either. So I'm with you. I would not support that. But I will support that we start to put together what it would be that we could bring to a ballot.
If you're going to put it on this year's ballot, you will not know what it's for. There just is not enough time.
I would like to propose that we carve out a certain amount of our strategic plan day that we already have scheduled, if we can, to look at these plans and see if there's projects that we feel comfortable in general numbers, because if we can, and that's within the next month, if we can come up with a reasonable idea of what we're looking at, then I think we could answer that question.
Okay, Councilman McCormick.
Well, I echo Brett's sentiments. I can't imagine anyone asking without having any idea. And I also think to do a bond like this, everyone has a citizen oversight committee. So you're not only talking about future councils, you're talking about a citizen oversight committee that is bound to do what you promised you were going to do with the money. If we're not ready for this in August because we don't have a good enough idea, I don't think anyone up here would vote to put that on the August ballot. The discussion now isn't, do you think you're going to do it? I don't think you are, so we shouldn't even talk about it. The discussion now is this something to pursue and to keep moving forward on? If it isn't August, is it November? Is it never? But the idea to decide now, well, I don't think you could do it, so nope, that I don't get.
Okay.
We don't have the projects.
Basically, what I'm saying, we need some guidance. We need guidance to know what type of detail we need as far as the projects we want to do. We want to know capacity. We know all the financial things involved. And they might say to us, hey, you know what, guys? You're certainly not ready to do this. You're going to have to wait another year. Or you don't have enough detail. You don't have enough planning. Or whatever they're going to say. But we don't have any of that counsel right now coming to us. I agree with you. We should have it, but what detail do we need? Is the stormwater project going to cost $422 million and 32 cents, or is it going to? We have to have an approximate thing. How far detailed? How close do we have to make it reasonable to raise the money? And that's why we need people who do this to give us advice. That's all I'm saying.
At least 3 councils have come and gone, and we still don't know what we're going to do at 5:30.
Well, that has nothing whatsoever to do with that, okay?
Yes, it does. If we can't decide what to do with one park, what are we going to do?
We shouldn't do anything until we float away.
No, we need to plan first and then ask for money.
Let's get something done. Let's stop with this. The point is, I think Ed's point is let's get something going so that we have counsel that we can talk to, because none of us know what the hell we're talking about up here. We're all saying, you're saying we can't get it done in time. You may absolutely, you may be right, but you may be wrong. And if we get bond counsels or whoever, bond advisors, they may come in and say, guys, this is what you need. There's no way to get it in this year, but you know, this is what you need. These are the plans you need. I get, let's do this. Let's actually do something. Let's do something.
Step number one is to identify the projects and
We
the
have
costs.
the projects.
Bond counsel can't tell you that. No,
not counsel.
you have
It's not bond
you have
counsel.
things sitting on the shelf that are stale, that haven't been looked at in a while, that you want to pull out and package them together.
We're not going to package it. We're going to want them to tell us this is how much detail. To his point, we need to know how detailed. What do we have to do on these projects to have them ready to go for bond? I don't think it hurts to move the bond process along.
We need
How does it hurt?
advising, that's all.
So
How
can
does,
we,
how does it hurt?
can
Tell me how
we
it
Because
agree
you're putting the-
can we agree to have a discussion about this at our strategic planning session to see how
That's
far
fine.
along we get?
That's absolutely fine. But I'd like
So-
this,
And then,
Ed's
if
point,
if
let's
you
figure
agree to
out.
my change in meetings, which we haven't discussed yet, but our strategic planning is on the 14th of March.
Yes.
So if we can prepare ourselves, and we should come to that meeting knowing about every one of these plans and projects that have been looked at. So if you would be able to, Andrea, give us those plans, and I know we've probably all received them before, but these different master plans that we have, so we can look at them and we can come to this meeting prepared to think in these terms of what kind of projects do we need a bond for? And shortly thereafter, we could get a bond counsel to come to our meeting and give us some ideas after
Bond
we've
counsel,
had that
bond
discussion.
advisors or whatever,
Ben, bond
investment
advisor.
advisors, whatever it is. I think that's
Are
right.
we talking about the change or no?
Well,
Well,
that's gonna come. Time out.
Changing now?
So, no, let's
That's my
let's talk
motion.
this. Yeah,
That's
the
my motion that we put this as part of the strategic planning.
I second.
Fine, let's do
I'm
it.
in favor.
Next.
That's our plan, and we will deliver on that. And
Great.
to Councilmember London's point, FA Services is ready to go out, so we'll run the scope by you, and we'll put it out next week.
Run the scope by whom?
Councilmember London, if he's interested to see the FA Services,
What, okay.
financial advisor services for the bond issuance.
All right.
One thing I just want to tell you that I have kind of a unique experience. I actually sit on the Jackson Hospital Advisory Bond Committee. I mean, I've been doing it since inception. Their question, what it is they have tranches, but it said including but not limited to, so there was flexibility in the $830 million. Their program has been extremely successful, and I think you might learn some lessons from speaking to them too.
Great.
Can you invite them to
so-
our meeting?
Sure. I mean, I think that.
Please.
And they'll be happy to come and explain how they did it. But just for purposes of the question, you don't have to identify every single thing you're going to do, but you've got to have,
An idea.
some idea, and you have to have that idea to sell it to the public, but with,
Of course.
readily identifiable, projects that are going to sell.
No doubt.
Anyways, I just wanted to put that out.
So
there.
the bottom line is you will invite them to our meeting to.
I will.
Okay.
They'll be happy to come to it.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry, the motion on the floor was to direct the manager to discuss this at the strategic planning?
Right.
On the 14th.
On the 14th?
Yes.
Is that it?
Correct.
Yes, with the previous master plans, so we can
Discuss.
look at them and
Yes.
research.
Stormwater, beach, undergrounding.
There are a lot of the other issues coming up. You're about dead right now. No, I mean, I don't, can we just defer some of the other items? I mean, the mayor is about ready to die. Yeah?
I would like to.
I think the one thing we need to do is,
I would like to get the
is pick
FPL.
a new date because of,
What's next?
I would like to get to the FPL thing. That's the only thing.
what, do you want to do the date now or no?
Let's do the date change.
Okay, Katie, I don't understand what you wanted.
I can't
It's
be
on the
here, I
web-
apologize,
date?
at the
Okay.
next meeting, which is scheduled for the 10th.
But, okay,
So I gave two alternatives, which would either be to have it on the 9th, the Monday before, if people are available, or a week later on the 17th.
I'd like it, yeah, I have something on the 17th.
I'm okay with the 9th.
I'm okay with the 9th.
Well, I mean, it's St. Patrick's Day, but I have something that day. I legitimately have something. I have an event.
Is everyone okay for the
Yeah,
9th? Can we do that?
We'll do Monday the
That would be
9th.
great, thank you very much.
Let's do that.
gonna be weird on a Monday.
So now you send us.
I'll send out the invite tomorrow.
Okay, so I decline this one. No?
So council meeting minutes, okay.
I move for deferral. I mean for adjournment.
For what?
Adjournment.
No, I'd like to just talk about the FPL thing, 'cause it's a little bit time sensitive. Can I go ahead and start that?
Item 9A6, update on FPL.
Okay, so we went up to Tallahassee, Katie, myself, Allison, and sorry, I'm not using the formal names, and Mike. We all went up to Tallahassee. We had a great meeting with the Public Service Commission directors up there, and they really laid it out clear, the policy up there. And what it became clear was that we need to be, it's all about FPL now, right? We need to be in front of FPL and talking to them, because there's two avenues that we can go. We can go the avenue that we've been looking at, where we are getting which is the tariff avenue, where there's a 25% off and plus reimbursement to what the hardening would have been in our community, as long as we buried the entire community down. So that's what the path that we've been investigating. Now that the Public Service Commission has come out with what they call the cost recovery plan, I forget there was another name for it, the storm protection plan. There's a policy set that the electric companies can go ahead and harden different lines wherever they want to, and hardening can mean anything, trimming trees or burying power lines or stiffening the poles, all different things, but they're only out there to harden and fix it, and then they can cost recover it on everybody's bill. So what FPL will be doing is that if they came and did Key Biscayne, it goes on everybody, every FPL bill, it gets dispersed on everybody's. If they do
In the state.
in the whole, in all of FPL, for FPL's companies. If they do it in Hialeah, it's going to be everywhere. We're going to get hit with that too. So it gets dispersed among everybody. So
the rate base. Yeah.
The rate base. So it's not just, okay, we do your neighborhood, we're going to charge you, right? So they are now in the moment, and I spoke to FPL. I called them. I had a half an hour discussion with them. The process that they're in right now is that in April, they're going to go ahead and roll out their first year of what they're going to do. And I asked them, how are they selecting it? Because we want to bury our power lines, and if they could pay 100% of that and do a cost recovery, that would be the best situation that we can be in. And by the way, talking to them, it sounds like what they're looking at is burying laterals. That's what they want to do. Laterals, not feeders.
Not feeders.
They said, I was on the phone.
I know, but
I asked them on the phone.
That was Public Service Commission. They don't have the decision. They give it to the FPL decision.
They said that if whatever FPL spends, they will get that on the rate base.
Exactly.
So if FPL wants to put in the line from the house to the connection,
they include that.
They will pay everything.
Yeah, they'll pay that. But there's feeders. So feeders are the main ones that come from, and I don't want to talk for FPL. They might be burying it, but it sounds like, the main ones are coming from the substation. They're not really interested in that. They're looking for the ones in the backyard, right? So, I asked them, how are they determining which ones are going to get done? They said that they have a system in place that will determine it. Now, some of it makes sense. I don't know. And they said that they would help me find out a little bit more about the system. But what my understanding is that every meter is producing data constantly, right? And in there, they can literally pinpoint a meter that knows that a lateral is out the most. And whatever has that most time, they're going to go after those, which makes sense, right? Because you're getting your biggest bang for your buck because you're reducing maintenance costs. So they're going to go after them. I don't know if other things are in the equation. There probably are other things in the equation. But I think that right now, what we should be doing is getting in front of FPL, showing them that we really want to do this project, and trying to get onto this plan as much as we can, and at least working with them to try to find out where we are on the plan. Because if we are not going to be on the top of the list, if we're at the bottom of the list, then we shouldn't even be waiting for this. We should be moving on to step number 2 and just say that's the way it's going to be. Right. So we got to get into there now. Go ahead.
After our conversation, or your conversation I was listening to and talking, it's in FPL's best interest to spend as much money as possible to do it for us, because the more money they spend, the more money they make, because it goes into the rate base. Right. I then talked to Chad and Steve Helfman and talked to them about contacting who do they know, how can we get to FP&L. And you say that you basically are working on that. And then, of course, I talked to some other friends I have. I have a few
You
friends.
have friends?
Two.
And I can
And
help you.
unfortunately, and this will just kick in the butt, one friend said, damn, he was best friends with the guy, just resigned from his president or CEO of FPL scores. But what we're now looking at, a whole bunch, at least I am, with some friends, trying to make contact with who we know to get to FP&L to get something done. No promises, but that is also running in parallel with Steve and Chad, with people they know. So anybody that you know who might know people in FPL, that's what you have to do. If you really want to move right up the ladder.
Motion to adjourn.
Forget about the
I
meters,
just want to
forget
make
about
one
everything,
quick
laterals.
comment. Father Libby is in the hospital. So I just wanted to give a positive thought to him. I think he's okay. His wife is with him, but he's recovering. Father Libby is in the hospital. He was hospitalized today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, yeah. So I
And
just
also
wanted to
Raul Llorente.
positive note. Raul's back. He's fine.
Well, yeah, but
He was in.
he wasn't doing well.
Anyway, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
We done?
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
1 second.